that case, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act 10:4-6 et seq. Annual notice having been forwarded to the New Jersey Herald and the New Jersey Sunday Herald and posted on the bulletin board maintained in the municipal building for public announcements. Would you please rise and join us in a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of America,
United States
of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it stands,
stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty.
liberty, and justice for all.
Okay, Danielle, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Here.
Mr. Duncan,
Here.
Mr. Gaffney, Mrs. Crock,
Here,
Mr. Ray, Mr. Riley,
Here.
Mr. Toppin, Councilman Schindler,
Here.
Mayor Francis,
Here.
Mr. Gilbert.
Here. We have a quorum, so we will continue with the meeting. Minutes of the April 20th, 2021 meeting were distributed electronically. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
No.
Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Make the motion?
I'll second it.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Rich, we have a big R for you. We don't see you, just so you notice. Okay, what I'm going to change the order of the agenda. We're going to start with the work session. We will then continue with the new application for Mr. Chaplin, then the continued application from Bella Rosa, and the new application from Janelle. So we will start with the Wildwood Shores Property Association, possible lot line adjustment between block 31304 lots 10 and block 31304 lot 26. Somebody here to represent the Wildwood Shores Property Owners Association. Okay, would you please unmute yourself, sir? You're muted. We'll wait while I get technical assistance there.
Thank you.
There you go. Hello. You want to introduce yourself, please?
My name is Doug Gardner, and I'm the Vice President of the Wildwood Shores Property Owners Association.
Okay, and there's no need for you to be sworn in since this is just a work session. And you want to explain to the board what you want to do here?
I don't see Mr. Casari. Oh, here he is. Can you also put up it says Victoria Patel Casari. He's the one who wants to purchase it.
Okay, where is that person? Do you see it, Danielle?
I'm working on it.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
waving. He's muted though also.
Yeah, you're muted, sir. Victoria, you're muted. There you go.
Can you hear me now? My name is
Yes.
Patrick. Hello, sir. How are you? And hello, everybody.
Hello. Okay. Who wants to speak first?
Yes, basically what we're looking to see if we can just do a simple lot line adjustment between the two properties. You should have in front of you a copy of the existing boundaries,
Yep.
and then behind it a copy of the proposed.
Okay, and I see that what it does is it takes one conforming lot and one non-conforming lot, and it creates two conforming lots. However, you've lost 20 square feet of property according to these drawings. If you add up the existing square feet of the two lot 19 and lot 26, and then you go to the new ones, you've lost 20 square feet.
Math isn't right.
So you mean it was a miscalculation?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I'm just a mathematician. I just figured, I just did some addition.
I think there's
Okay.
some issues there.
So we were unaware of that.
But I mean, this is just a work session, so that's not terribly important. I just wanted to point it out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we can get that fixed.
Yeah, you get that clarified if you bring, when you bring a proposal to us.
Sure.
But what is the purpose of this? Are you going to be building on these lots, or what's going on?
Well, for us, it's way up on a slope and it's completely useless to the association.
Yep.
And we're also in desperate need of revenue.
Okay. And who is going to be buying it?
That would be me. My name's Patrick Kassir, and that lot is directly in my backyard. I can use it for. I'm not planning on building on it at all, but I do have a lot of area that's there that I can use just to put stuff.
Okay. Now, which lot is it you would be buying? Is it lot 26 or lot 19? Lot 26, correct?
I own 26 right now.
And we'll expand lot 26.
I would.
Oh, I see. You own
26.
26, and the proposal is to add to your property.
Right, and it's the hill. If you came over here, the clubhouse is down below, and then
Yes,
the
I
hill,
saw that.
Yeah, the hill comes up right in my backyard, and all that hill is really it's Wildwood Shores homeowners association property, and I mean I could use it for putting wood. I mean I have wood there right now, so like I put all kinds of things I could use for storage back there.
Okay. Does anybody from the board want to make comment on this?
Yeah, be careful what you say you're going to do with it. If you're planning on putting any structures down there, you're going to have to get a pool, right?
Yeah.
That would be no problem. I'm not planning on putting any structures there.
Well, at the end of the day, we've taken one non-conforming lot and made it conforming. I think that's one of our goals.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is one of our goals, definitely.
Mhm.
What's the reason for the shape on the pointed shape a lot? I mean, why not square that off so it's a more fundamental shaped lot rather than I mean, both of the lots are totally irregular. And I know it's
That's probably because that's where the hill is.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I mean, and any way you look at it, we're still making a conforming lot, and we're having a good day when we do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Anybody from the public want to comment on this? If you do, go to the bottom of the screen to the reactions and raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Are there any other comments from the board?
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks good. Good luck.
Okay. Did you gentlemen get the guidance that you need?
Do we know what we need to do, Douglas?
I think the board would look favorably upon this. Make sure that when you bring it to us, in the final version, that you don't lose 20 square feet.
We'll get the proper square foot down. Thank you very much for all your help and all your time. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming tonight, both of you.
Have a great evening.
Alan,
Yes.
Bye.
we need site surveys.
There's going to have
What's
a plat showing each of the properties and the existing configuration, not just a hand-drawn. We need something.
And we need official documents showing the under. Okay.
So
Yeah,
you need it from a surveyor with the raised seal.
Yes,
Just like
exactly.
what we do with our surveyor with the raised seal.
Yeah, both of them. The new one that has the expanded and one, the old one that's been reached, right?
Right.
Yeah. Need to know.
Yeah, you need accurate seal survey to show exactly what the property is.
Okay.
And it'll show all on a single plat. It'll show both properties adjacent to each other and where the new lot line will be.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, Bobby Ray will be on in about 10 minutes.
okay, that's fine. We'll move along. We'll go to the Raymond Chaplin application. The applicant would like to expand, replace decks, add a new pergola, and a new paver patio. There are some variances for block 10811, lot 3, 13 Cove Road. Is Mr. Chaplin here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you want to raise your hand, please, and be sworn in?
Raise your right- You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your full name, sir?
It's Raymond Christopher Chaplin.
And are you a property owner?
I am. My wife and I.
Okay.
Okay, is anybody else going to be testifying on your behalf, sir?
No, it'll just be me, sir.
Okay, then, are you in, let me see if oh, here it is. Are you in receipt of the letter from Mott McDonald dated April 6, 2021, and its technical review?
Yes, I am, sir.
Do you have any questions or any problems with the items listed, 5 items?
Not at all. I tried to incorporate the first comments into the current drawings before I resubmitted them.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as number 5 goes, I don't have any issues getting an as-built when I'm all finished with this.
Okay. What about numbers 2 and 3?
2
The
and
dimensions.
3. So I tried to put a hatch on pretty much like hatch marks where the existing deck is right now on the current site survey that I submitted. And I also added in that setback as well.
Okay. Comments from board members? Comments, questions?
Chaplain, could you just very briefly explain to the public what you're intending to do here?
So the main problem I have right now is my deck off the back of the house is 8 by 30, and it gets very tight out there. As most of you know who live on the lake, you know, when you buy a lake house, you find a lot of family and friends are inviting themselves over constantly. And you know, we have family dinners out there. It's an 8-foot width. It gets tight out there. You know, it's getting to be somewhat of a safety hazard for some of my older family members to maneuver around the dinner table. So I would like to expand the deck out. It'll be 12'6" by 45. And, you know, I had a pergola over top of one end. I currently have a 2nd-story deck, and to kind of balance out the house and kind of give it a sense of symmetry, I want to add a pergola that's relatively the same size as the other upper deck. And the pergola, in addition to aesthetics, will also help functionality. I'm kind of lucky in the sense that I can sit out all day in the sun, but my wife gets about 30 minutes before she starts turning into a tomato. So I'm trying to get her a little bit of a shade structure there as well. And also underneath, I would like to replace the existing gravel with a paver patio, you know, made from paver blocks.
Okay, questions from the board?
They're going to be impervious.
So all the decks are being taken off then, and these will all be new decks, all new structure.
What was that, sir?
All of the decks will be taken off that are currently there, and you'll be putting all new deck up.
I'll be rebuilding them. The only thing that will kind of stay the same is the one platform where the existing stairs are. You know, the stairs will stay the exact same dimensions. I just plan on tying into them and expanding everything else out.
Yeah. You're basically taking an 8-foot deck and turning it into a 13-foot deck.
Correct. And a 30-foot to a 45-foot. Extending it across the entire back of the house.
You priced lumber lately?
What was that?
You priced lumber?
I will probably be holding off on this one till next year. You know, I'll probably be doing the patio this year because masonry isn't that bad. But with the prices of lumber, yeah, I'll get the approvals now and worry about that in a little bit.
Right. Did you also get the letter dated May 3rd, yesterday, from the Lake Hopatcong Commission?
I am not in receipt of that.
I
Okay. well,
emailed it this morning. You should have it
Yeah, we just,
at your junk mail.
yeah.
Okay, let me check my junk real quick.
Just a quick question. Are you going to put all brand new footers in for the entire 45 feet?
I'm gonna have to, yes. You know,
You're not going to be
Mainly-
cantilevering off the 8-foot.
no, I don't plan on using this. What is designing it as is the post. You can see kind of like the proposed architectural details there. And I'm
Looks
trying
good.
to have the patio wide open underneath. So I'll be doing new footers and making sure it's a wide open patio rather than having a second set of posts that are in the patio as well.
There's permits required on this, so our code official will make sure all them details are addressed.
Just curious.
Okay. Anything else from the board? If not, I will open it to the public. Would anybody from the public like to comment or question anything about this application? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen to reactions and click on raise hand.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes, I'm a raised direct neighbor, attached by associate, directly sharing a fence. He's reviewed all the drawings with me, and I have absolutely no issue. I think it's going to enhance the property value and it'll look great.
Oh, thank you very much. Anybody else from the public want to comment on this application or ask any questions about it? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
No second.
Okay,
Mr.
we have a
Bongiovanni?
motion and a second.
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Councilman Schindler?
Yes.
Mayor Francis?
Francis?
Hold on.
Mike, you're muted.
People been trying to do that for a while. Yes.
And Mr. Gilbert?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Chaplin, you have your approvals. We will have a resolution in a month, and you can then go and get your permit.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, is there any way I can request a waiver of memorialization? Just
There
because,
certainly is. Just request it and we'll vote on it.
yeah, even though I don't plan on doing the decking this year, I do plan on doing the footings and then doing patio over top of them. And masonry material is starting to sell out fast, so I would like to be able to get started.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to waive memorialization.
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Councilman Schindler?
Yes.
Mayor Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Chaplin, you can go and pull permits as soon as you find it necessary.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good luck to you. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Okay, we will now move on to the Bella Rosa continued application. Bella Rosa Realty, block 10707, lots 6, 7, 8, and 9, Lakeside Boulevard. Basically what they are planning on doing is converting this from mixed use back to single use. And
Mr. Chairman, this is a use variance,
yes,
so I
this
will
is
recuse
use
myself.
variance. So you and Mr. Schindler will have to recuse yourselves.
Done?
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, and that will leave us with how many voting members? Let's see. Myself,
6.
Duncan, 6?
Yep.
Okay.
Ray?
There are 6. We really should have 7.
It's the applicant can elect to proceed. It would be at the applicant's discretion. Is the attorney here?
Yes, for the record, Tom Allen, Dave Pitney on behalf of the applicant. We would like to proceed and see how far we get this evening. Would you like me
Okay.
to begin?
All right, and who is going to be testifying tonight?
We have several witnesses lined. Let's give you some background before I call the witnesses, just to kind of put it in context. We haven't been before you since December, you may recall. And at that meeting, we went to testimony with 4 witnesses. We described the project. Recall the project involves a use variance to convert some existing commercial space to residential space. It also entails building, at the time, 3 new structures, all with residential buildings, 1 along Lakeside and 2 in the back, each having 5 units. At the end of the meeting in December, the board asked us to go look at some traffic issues. We were also asked by Mr. Rushke to consider some drainage issues. We've done that, and we'll report on that this evening. The big issue, though, is we went to the county, and the Sussex County Planning Board essentially told us that we're not going to approve the application with the retained 6 spaces in front of the property along Lakeside. You may recall we were proposing to keep those spaces as part of the application that you heard back in December. That required the applicant to rework the application, to relocate those spaces, which has been done, so there's been no loss of parking spaces, just relocated. It also required a reconfiguration of the new building in the rear. Rather than having 2 buildings, each with 5 units, we now have 1 building with 10 units. So the unit count hasn't changed, but the configuration has changed. We're going to go through that for you this evening. So in terms of witnesses, we have Mark Gimigliano, our engineer, who testified last time. Ryan DeVeni, our architect, also testified last time. We have Jay Troutman, who did not testify. He's our traffic engineer who was retained after the December meeting and filed the report that the board has on file. And we also have John McDonough, our planner, available to testify as well. So those are the 4 witnesses we have lined up to go this evening. And unless you have questions of me, I'll be recalling Mr. Gimigliano.
Well, let's have all 4 of them sworn in by Mr. Haggerty. 2 of them are still sworn, but let's have them sworn in again anyway.
That's fine.
If you don't, if all the witnesses would please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And could you each, in some orderly fashion, identify yourselves?
My name is Mark Gimigliano, spelled Gimigliano, and I'm the engineer with Dykstra Walker Design Group.
Bob?
My name is Ryan DeVeni. I'm the owner and founder of RD Architectural Design.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jay Troutman. I'm a principal with the traffic engineering firm of McDonough and Ray Associates.
And the 4th person.
I'm not sure if John McDonough's on. Is John McDonough on yet? He's another hearing, but he'll be here at some point. He was sworn last time and testified. I'm not sure he's here right now.
He's here.
Okay, well, if he
Just
shows
muted.
up, just remind him that he's still sworn.
Absolutely.
When he's here, he's just muted.
Oh,
Oh,
he's
okay.
muted. Okay, can you unmute yourself, sir? That's Mr. DeVani, is it?
No, McDonough.
John McDonough is our planner.
Mr. McDonough. Is he still muted? I don't see him.
Why don't we proceed? He may be tied up. He has another hearing that should be resolved or ending fairly soon, so he'll catch up to us.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I'll call Mr. Gimigliano again, who was sworn last time. Recall he's an engineer at Dykstra Walker. And Mark, do you have control of the exhibits?
Yes, Danielle, I'm going to put my exhibits up on the screen, if that's okay.
That's fine with me, yes.
I think I'd like, if you can, Mr. Gimigliano, just spend a few minutes, very short time, just refreshing our memory, the location of the property, what was on before the board back in December, then we'll go into what's changed since then.
Okay. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was marked last time, is that correct, Mark?
Yes, this was an exhibit I presented last time.
Okay, so briefly to describe where we are.
Yeah, this is just a quick overview. This shows where the property is located. It shows existing property and its existing conditions overlaid by an aerial image. The property's in the center of the image you see on your screen, and it's colored to show the features on site. Lakeside Boulevard runs north and south, up and down through the center of your screen. The property is located on the east side of Lakeside Boulevard. Ryerson Roads to the north and Edsel Roads to the south. The property is currently developed with a mixed-use development containing residential and commercial uses. And I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit. There's a parking lot in the back, the gray area, the beige. Buildings are colored in beige. The parking lot is colored gray behind the building, and you can see that there's a parking space. There are parking spaces at the front of the property.
Why don't you go to your next exhibit to show what was proposed back in December?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is zoomed in now, but
Okay.
the 6 parking spaces are here in the front. And I also just want to mention the property split zoned. That white dashed line is the zone line. B2 zone is at the front of the property, and the back of the property is in the 1 zone. And all the development on site is within the B2 zone.
Hence the need for the use variance, residential use in a business zone.
That's correct. And then this is the exhibit I shared last time of the proposed development on site. And this shows what's proposed. We're proposing to renovate the existing buildings, remove most of the commercial space, leave only 750 square feet of commercial space, and the rest will be converted to residential apartments. We're also proposing 3 new buildings, or at the time we were proposing 3 new buildings on site. We have a 3-unit townhouse building along Lakeside Boulevard. You can see where my cursor is. And then 2 5-unit buildings in the back of the property. We're also proposing an addition over an existing garage for an extra dwelling unit on site. That existing parking lot will be removed, and we'll have a through parking lot which connects Ryerson Road and Edsel Road. Parking lot will be constructed with permeable pavement, which will provide stormwater management for the site. We require 58 parking spaces, and have 58 parking spaces for this project, so we comply with the residential site improvement standards, Hopatcong Borough ordinances. And you can see on this old plan, there are still those 6 parking spaces in the front along Lakeside Boulevard. And as Mr. Malman mentioned, we went to the county and met with the Development Review Committee on March 15th, and they told us that they would not approve this development with the 6 spaces. They're existing spaces, but they want those eliminated in order for us to get county site plan approval. So because of that, we want to get that approval. We revised the plans. We submitted plans at the beginning of August. And this next
That should be April, August. So why don't you?
You're right, April.
So why don't you
Beginning of
put that up? Put up your revised plan, if you will, which we should mark. I believe you have an exhibit that shows the new configuration.
Sure, and this is up on your screen now is the revised plan. It's called Site Plan Exhibit. Shows the proposed development of the site. It's our site
Just
plan.
hold on 1 second, Mark. I believe we left off with exhibit A5 last time, if I'm not mistaken. This should be A6.
No, I think you have 4 exhibits. I got to A14.
Oh, I forgot the architecture. Right, so this is A15. Okay, so, and this is a rendering of the plan on file with the board. Is that correct, Mr. Dimigliano?
That's correct.
Okay, no changes. It's exactly the same plan, just rendered with color to highlight various features.
That's right, and we show the landscaping as well.
So please continue. Tell us what's happened now, how the plan changed since December.
Okay, you can see it's very similar, but the main difference is the removal of the 6 parking spaces at the front. Those spaces will be removed, the pavement removed, and that'll be converted into green space, lawn, and landscape area. And then in the back of the property, we took the 2 5-unit buildings and combined them into 1 10-unit building. There'll still be the same number of units. That building will have 2 2-bedroom townhouse units and 8 2-bedroom apartments. That's the same thing that was proposed in those 2 5-bedroom units. The reason we did that was to get a little more room in the back for additional parking. Because we eliminated those 6 parking spaces, we need to find for 6 parking spaces on site. So we added 1 space right here where my cursor is in the northeast corner of that through main parking lot. And then we added 5 additional parking spaces in a separate parking lot next to the 10-unit building coming off of Ryerson Road. So in total, we still have 58 parking spaces, which is required for this development. There's no change in the number of units, no change in the bedroom count. And this project continues to comply with the residential site improvement standards and the borough parking ordinances.
I recall last time there were questions about drainage. I believe you met with Mr. Rushke at some point over the past several months. Can you talk about those issues, please, and how you resolved them?
Yeah, we met with Mr. Rushke on and discussed a couple things with him. The first thing was the improvements to Ryerson Road. And at the last meeting, we talked about widening Ryerson Road. And based on the meeting with Mr. Rushke, we agreed to improve it to widen it to 20 feet wide. You can see this gray area is all the area that will be widened to 20 feet wide, the darker gray area. And we'll also add curbing along most of our frontage on Ryerson Road and a sidewalk connection between Lakeside and our parking lot. So those off-site improvements that we discussed at the last meeting and finalized in our meeting with Mr. Rushke. But the other item that was discussed at the last meeting was, and brought up by some of the neighbors, was flooding that occurred in the wetland area at the back of our property. The wetlands, just to refresh your memory, is this area right here on the east end of our property, and it sort of borders us and the residential properties to the east. And the neighbors indicated that that area floods, and there was concern that our project would worsen that flooding. My testimony was we won't increase the amount of runoff, we'll actually decrease the rates of runoff to those wetlands, and we comply with stormwater standards. But based on Mr. Rushke's review comments, he was still concerned that even though we comply, the timing of when that water gets to the wetlands could impact or worsen flooding back there. So he requested that we perform a regional drainage study, not just look at the water coming from our property, but looking at all the water going to those wetlands and analyze it, how it functions now and how it will function after this development. So we looked at it under both existing and proposed conditions, considering our stormwater management system. And what we found is that, as was reported by the neighbors, that area does flood during larger storm events. However, under proposed conditions, we will not increase the rate of water going to those wetlands. We will also not increase any flooding in that area. So this project will have no adverse impacts on those existing flood conditions that occur in the wetlands. All that was done as revised drainage calculations and submitted with the revised plans at the beginning of April.
Any other significant change? I guess lighting is basically the same, just reoriented because the configuration has changed. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, lighting's the same. We added one parking lot light. We added some shields on the lights to ensure there's no illumination of adjoining properties. We provided a point-by-point analysis to show that we conform with the borough ordinances. We do need a design waiver because we have illumination levels slightly above zero right along the Ryerson Road right away, but no illumination of any adjoining properties. And we did upgrade the landscaping plan as well by adding some additional building plantings and a staggered row of evergreen trees between those new parking spaces, and next to those new parking spaces to screen from the neighbor's property.
Hey, talk about the bulk variances that are required as part of the, and we know we have a use variance to have residential in the business zone. What about the bulk variances in terms of what we had before, we have now?
The bulk variances, we went through all those last time, but this plan actually eliminates one of the bulk variances. Previously, we required a front yard setback variance along Ryerson Road. Once we merged these two buildings, we were able to move it farther away from Ryerson Road and no longer require a front yard setback variance at that part of the property. We still require a front yard setback variance at Edsel, which was proposed before and we discussed last time.
We still require variances for, maybe you can go through them quickly, just remind the board. There was a height issue with the in the front over the garage. There were also parking in the front yard. Probably just run through those quickly if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. We have the use variance, which we've discussed. We have a variance for more than one principal building on the lot when only one principal building is allowed. We have a building separation variance between this 3-unit townhouse building and the existing building. And that's 14.7 feet where 30 feet's required. We have variance, as you mentioned, for parking spaces in the front yard at both Edsel and Ryerson Road. We have a variance for the parking space sizes. Parking spaces are required to be 10 by 20 feet. We're proposing them at 9 by 18 feet in conformance with the residential site improvement standards. We still have front yard setback variances along Lakeside and Edsel Road and for this existing building on Ryerson, but we did eliminate the front yard setback variance for the proposed building on Ryerson. We have a variance for no loading spaces on site, and then the building height variance. We're proposing a 2-story addition on top of an existing garage, and because of the way the grade drops off in the back, it's technically a 3-story building where only 2.5 stories are required. However, it does meet the overall building height requirements.
Right, and we talked about that at length last time, and that was, in fact, of the variances, really the only significant change is going to be the issue of parking, the new parking on the Ryerson side, those within the front yard setback, and the other building setback on Edsel. Otherwise, the variances, I think, were the ones we talked about last time, and they have not been changed.
That's correct.
Okay. Can you give us the status of Sussex review, where that stands, and what we expect to have happen with them?
We submitted revised plans to the Sussex County Planning Department. They received them. They're under review. Because we eliminated the waiver that was needed for those parking spaces in the front, we do not have to appear in front of the planning board. That application can be approved by staff, and it's under review now. We expect it hopefully within the next couple weeks.
Great. I have further questions of Mr. Brigliano.
Board members, do you have any questions?
No. Does John have a question?
Yeah, you're going to have a separate, you got someone else testifying on the architecture of the building to discuss the building itself?
Yes, our next witness is Ryan DeVenny, who testified last time, testify when we're done, Mr. Giuliano.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. The waiver that you're requesting for the size of the parking spaces. I have a very large SUV. Automakers are stopping the production of sedans and going to SUVs. And I anticipate that lots of people are going to have large SUVs in addition to me. They don't fit in these smaller spots.
Well, they really are. They're sort of standard size. I mean, our planner testified this last time. 18 is a very conventional size parking space. You'll find pretty much in every.
But we require 10 by 20. Is it possible to get any 10 by 20 spots in there?
Yeah, I mean,
Mark,
the 9 by 18 spots, the people, when they park in these larger vehicles in the smaller spots, tend to hang the bumper over the curb. So what we've done is we've created all the sidewalks 6 feet wide. So anyone that hangs the bumper over the curb still allows for a 4-foot wide sidewalk. So in effect, with that extra space, there's 20 feet of depth when counting those 2 feet over the sidewalk.
I have more of a problem with the side of my vehicle.
Yeah.
I can't open the doors half the times.
Yeah, I mean, the 10-foot spaces, usually where we see those are in shopping centers where people have carts or packages that are being brought into the cars, where they need extra room to maneuver around the cars. The 9-foot wide spaces are pretty standard for residential development. In fact, that's what's required by the residential site improvement standards.
But in town here, we have a requirement for 10 by 20, and I'm looking at the 10 more than the 20.
Right. Yeah, I mean, by going with the narrower spaces, it reduces impervious cover, so there are benefits to smaller spaces. And with the reduced impervious cover, reduced stormwater runoff. So do understand that the wider spaces do provide more room, but the 9-foot spaces seem to work well with this site.
All right, I have another question.
If you want
where you have the proposed townhouse, I was over there the other day and you got a couple of very large trees over there. I don't see them on the plans at all, removing the trees, or what's going to happen with them? Will they have to be removed?
Yeah, any trees within the area of disturbance that's proposed on the plan will be removed. So there will be trees removed for this project.
John Rushke, shouldn't they note on the plans where there are trees that are going to be removed? Like
Yeah, it is. Yes, they should. They should be identified. There is a requirement to identify trees.
Yeah, because there's some pretty big trees up there by where that townhouse is gonna go.
Yep, in the wooded area. There's a substantial amount of tree in the wooded area that's going to be removed.
Hey, John, how much do the trees in the wooded area, which is quite, how does that affect the water runoff and water consumption?
You know, when they do the stormwater calculations, they take that into effect, you know, the change in the land use. So when they evaluate the existing conditions, they do take that into consideration, that's what is the extent of existing impervious coverage, what is the extent of woods, and they look at all those services, and that is taken into consideration when they evaluate the existing compared to the proposed flow. Where the proposed flow, they take the proposed services, and so they take that into consideration when they do the analysis.
Now, when they do these calculations, I mean, it's still pure speculative. It's still a calculation. What if that calculation falls short of the amount of water flow and they actually end up with more down there? What guarantees that the neighbors aren't going to get flooded? I mean, I know it's a statement, it's a PE making that assessment, but still, what guarantees that they're not going to be impacted by this development?
You know, as a stormwater analysis, you have to do based on industry standards, and you know, you can have a debate. Do you agree those industry standards are accurate, or how accurate are they? But they are the industry standards, and that's what's required. You know, even if this was a conforming lot, we have to use the same calculations, and they're you know, accepted throughout New Jersey. So I don't think we should be having a discussion regarding the validity of those industry standards. Certainly there is a margin of error with looking at calculating what the actual coefficient is and various variables. And yes, there is some professional judgment that goes into there, but I tend to push engineers to be conservative in their analysis. And in this particular case, I asked them to go above and beyond what would typically be done in a stormwater analysis, asking them to look at from a more of a regional standpoint and look at a routing analysis, looking at volume calculations. It's typically just look at rates of stormwater, and I actually asked them to expand that. So this was not something that was rubber stamped at all. It was we went through several revisions of calculations and modifications of those calculations until, frankly, I felt comfortable that they're not going to have a change in stormwater flooding in this area. There's no representation whatsoever that they're improving the situation, but they're not exacerbating the existing flooding that occurs.
Yeah. Now, when we had another down in that area once before, and we had some testimony from some residents there that said, it really does vary. And it really is like an unknown stream, whole area down there. So,
it's well known that area floods. There's no question about it. I've been down there multiple times, with the DPW cleaning out culverts and cleaning out areas because, it is an area that floods. There's no question about that. It does flood under different circumstances. When we do stormwater calculations, you base it on a standard hydrograph looking at standard storms. They typically look at a 10 and 100-year storm, but you don't calculate for every possible statistic where you may get a thunderstorm that may be representative of an intensity for a short period of time of a 500-year storm. You just don't go into the type of scenarios for thunderstorms of the like, but for the industry standard of looking at the standard 2-year, 10-year, and 100-year storm, that is the conventional way of looking at stormwater impacts.
I just look at the amount of wooded area up there that holds the water back a little bit, maybe slows it down.
That is true, but then you have to also look at what are they proposing. They're proposing, massive stone beds underneath the pervious pavement to retain that the same way that woods would. They have a detention basin that's holding the water back. That's what goes into the stormwater analysis and the sizing of those stormwater improvements. The sizing is not arbitrary. It's actually based on the existing conditions and the more woods and pervious pavement and such of existing condition versus proposed, that makes the stormwater improvements larger and larger to mitigate those flows.
I have a question. If you went to the 10-foot wide lots, would you still be able to put in 58 parking spaces? Or is that why you went to the 9 wide lots, so you could get to the 58 parking space?
Oh, well, we went with the 9-foot wide spaces because that's what's required by the residential site improvement standards, and that's what's standard for a residential development. But if we did go with wider parking spaces, then you're right, we would not be able to fit in as many parking spaces.
How many would we lose in the calculation? So you figured that out. 3?
4.
Well, I can check.
4. Maybe 5.
Yeah, probably 5 or 6 spaces.
Are there wheel stops at the parking?
There's curbing,
Curbing.
so there are no wheel stops.
I have one question, please. How many handicap accessible apartments or housing is there?
There are 2.
Handicap access-
Yes, we talked about this last time. The 2 ground floor apartment units in the 10-unit building will be handicap accessible. We've added access ramps to those units from the parking spaces.
Same side as the parking spaces for the handicap?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Judy. That's where I was going next. Any other comments or questions from the board?
As related to the site.
Just Mr. Gamigliati.
Let's move on to architecture.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll call Mr. Ryan Devaney, please.
Okay. So we made a few updates to the architectural drawings since our last meeting in December.
Just before you start, remind the board, Mr. Devaney, licensed architect, he testified last time.
Yep.
He has filed some revised plans with the board. So can we get your exhibits up? Is that possible before you start testifying? Mark, do you have them or do you have them, Ryan?
I have them. I'm going to bring them up.
Yeah, we'll start with A 1.0.
And these were filed with the board, so they're already part of the record.
Right.
All right, so if you wouldn't mind, maybe just remind us where we were quickly, and we'll talk about what's changed since last December.
Okay, so we made updates to the drawings since last December. We redesigned the facade of 33 Lakeside Boulevard. We provided a new entry portico for 35 Lakeside Boulevard, and we combined the previous 2 5-unit apartment buildings into one larger 10-unit apartment building. So we'll start with Exhibit A 1.0. Exhibit A 1.0 shows the updated street elevation from Lakeside Boulevard. You can see our current design for 33 Lakeside Boulevard, which is the second building from the left. I will go into this in more detail on the following exhibit. I also added a signage detail for the new V-shaped sign that displays Lakeside Manor, which is the name that we have given to the site. This is a simple sign about 4 feet high and 8 feet long on both sides. So if we could go to the next exhibit, Exhibit A 3.2. So Exhibit A 3.2 shows the revisions to the proposed front elevation for 33 Lakeside Boulevard. For 33 Lakeside Boulevard, we are converting 2 existing commercial spaces into 2 new apartments, which will be a 1-bedroom apartment and a 2-bedroom apartment. There is no work on the other 2 existing 2-bedroom apartments in that building. So the improvements to the facade for this building include the building facade design has been made more symmetrical, which is a comment that came up last time. The parapets have been enlarged and squared off. The awning for unit 33A has been squared off to match the parapet. And we are including a stacked stone veneer shown on the foundation that will match all the other buildings at Lakeside Manor. We are adding... Yes?
The idea is to make this more compatible and with the other existing buildings along the road, is that correct?
Yes, I think the boxy appearance will match many of the existing buildings that are all along Lakeside Boulevard. We're also adding the octagonal vents to both parapets, and just overall, it's a better facade design that will enhance the appearance from Lakeside Boulevard.
Right.
If we could go to the next exhibit, Exhibit A 4.1. So Exhibit A 4.1 shows the new entry portico that I've designed for the adjacent building at 35 Lakeside Boulevard. We are
This is the side,
replacing,
this is the right-hand side of the building as you're looking at it from the street, is that
Yeah.
correct?
yes, if you're looking at the hair salon, this is on the right-hand side of the building. So we are replacing the existing simple black awnings with this new entry portico. The two new columns and triangular pediment will provide a more aesthetically pleasing entrance for the tenants in the building. 4 different tenants will use this entrance. So this is a pretty simple update. If we could go to the next exhibit, Exhibit A 5.1. So Exhibit A 5.1 shows the proposed 10-unit building, which had previously been the 2 5-unit buildings before they were combined. My architectural firm has prepared exterior elevations in 3D renderings to help visualize the appearance of this proposed building. Similar to their buildings in the development at Lakeside Manor, the 10-unit building will have a stacked stone veneer at the base, light gray and dark gray vinyl siding, black shutters, and asphalt shingle roofing. The 10-unit building consists of all 2-bedroom apartments, both duplex and single floor. The 4 apartments on the ground floor are handicap accessible. We are providing 2 ramps for wheelchair access, as Mark already mentioned. 8 single floor apartments are 800 square feet in area with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom each. The 2 duplex apartments in the center of the building are a little bit larger at 1,250 square feet in area, and they have 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. For the exterior design of the building, we are showing 3 matching roof gables on the front and 1 at both ends. The gables, sorry, my cat is trying to join the meeting. The gables will have matching ornamentation, including gable brackets, friezeboard, and octagonal vents. The 10 apartments are accessible via 4 separate entrances. Each entrance is covered with a sloped roof supported by 2 columns. Each entry contains exterior wall-mounted lights. The 3D renderings also show a proposed site design adjacent to the apartments. You can see the new parking lot, the sidewalk, and the ground on the exterior of the building. Just in conclusion, these are the updates that my firm has provided to the facade at 33 Lakeside Boulevard, the entry portico at 35 Lakeside Boulevard, and the new design for the proposed 10-unit apartment building. These updates are an improvement from the original submission and will enhance the appearance of our town of Hopatcong from the stretch of Lakeside Boulevard. So, any questions?
Questions from the board?
On
Any
building
questions?
number 33, those entrance doors are right on the sidewalk. How do people get in? They park in the back. Do they have to walk all the way around the front to get into those buildings? Are there entrances in the back for those apartments?
No, the entrances are on the front. Actually, the apartment on the left does have a side entrance. And there are sidewalks that go along the side of the building that provide quick access to the building.
So
But no, there are no parking
question is,
spaces
yeah.
directly in front of the building.
So to get into the building, you park in the back and you have to walk all the way around to the front on the, because those doors are right on the sidewalk. There's no green between the sidewalk and the building, right?
There is a small strip of asphalt between the sidewalk and the building. But yes, the doors are quite close to the sidewalk.
And are
You
you,
have to have,
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead,
what was the
Judy.
question?
is there
Judy, what
only
was-
one entrance to these apartments?
At 33, there is a side entrance for the unit on the left, and they both have a front entrance.
And that's it?
That's it.
There's no back door to these apartments?
There's no back door, but there are egress windows. So in the event of an emergency, they could exit via the egress windows that are code compliant.
All right, you say so.
and as far as the hair salon, you're still asking to leave that And when she leaves to convert it to a living space?
Yes, that is correct. It's still a hair salon right now, but in the future, it could be converted into an apartment.
But that would be a separate application. We're not seeking a variance for that conversion now.
Okay.
Just a quick question, is the proposed construction modular construction?
Yes, the new buildings are all modular construction.
Now, if you did it stick, you could probably do more bump outs, because it is a long building, a long face of building without, we would think that a long building like that, you really need to have more of stick construction where you can have, bump outs and have some more dimension to the face so that it doesn't look like one long building. More
Yeah, well,
dimension.
we do have, sorry. My stupid cat keeps.
No cat's stupid. No cat is stupid.
All cats are stupid.
They
I'm
are
really
not.
sorry about that. He showed up at the worst times. Okay, so back to your question. So for the 10-unit building, the center of the building does bump out 2 feet. So that's the only bump out that we are showing right now.
Originally, when we spoke in December, we talked about enhancing the appearance of these units, both the two units in the back and the ones in the front. And I concur with John's statement about it's a really boring elevation. Think of looking at the back end. Look at your rear elevation. Looking at that from once it's up. It's going to just look like the back of a Walmart. I mean, there's nothing attached. There's nothing appealing to the people. The front as well. I mean, it's just not what I was hoping we would see was some more continuity to bring the front of the place together. I mean, who's going to look at this and go, Lakeside Manor? It coordinates amongst itself. It's a spattering of loosely designed buildings that do not match. What makes it manor?
Well, I think the front and side elevations are actually very aesthetically pleasing. The stacked stone veneer looks excellent in person. You can see that already installed at 35 Lakeside Boulevard. And the gable brackets are similar to the development at Woodman West along Route 80, which is, in my opinion, a gorgeous apartment building. So, I think this is going to be a very aesthetically pleasing building.
I hate to differ with you, but I don't really see it. I see it more as war housing. Plain, basic need housing that is not going to attract too much. It's the middle of town. The whole thing has no, to me, aesthetic value. It's too broken up, it's too dissimilar, and yet it's still trying to achieve one residential area. It misses it.
Are you referring to the existing buildings in the front in terms of being broken up?
Yeah, we had two things the last time in December. And I commented and several of the board members did. We wanted to see something a little better that brought the whole front together. Phil made that comment. We have 3 units at the end and they look like, okay, we just have to add them there. Okay, we want a 2-story building, we just add that there. There's no design feature to it all that says this is related. I mean, if you do look at the back building, as melancholy as it is, it has at least there's something that ties it together. Even though, like John said, there's no bump outs, there's no nothing. That you look at every little housing development now that's being built, stick built, there's something that brings it and has, there's walls that push out. This is just straight warehouse that has windows. I thought we were going to see something more on the architectural design this time, and we really didn't.
Mark, you bring up Exhibit A 1.0. There is a design feature there. So, I view this as a symmetrical development. There's a larger building on the left, then it goes to a smaller building, a larger building in the center, a smaller building, and a larger building on the end. So it's a symmetrical building. They're all going to match, and I personally think it's going to look excellent from Lakeside Boulevard.
Okay, well, I don't. And you got 3 units on the right side, number 29, bing, bing, bing. Then we stop, then we have the sign, then we have a small little building that's not really changing much. Then we just add on top of a garage. Then we have the 2 OK Corral buildings, and then we go over the far one on the left. I mean, Nothing ties them together.
We talked about possibly adding another story to 33 Lakeside Boulevard, but I would not support that because that building has 2x4 stud exterior walls and 2x6 ceiling joists. So that would not support a second story, also with the existing cinder block foundation. So you'd have to rip half of the building apart to add a second story on. And
maybe that needs to come down and something go up there. And then you tie the two buildings that have that, just listen, and the one that goes up to 2 stories, you could put another one of those structures over there and maybe enhance the elevation a little bit more so it doesn't look like your house. There's just something missing in this whole thing that's going to be to look at every time you drive by it. And I don't think it's an enhancement to the town.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's difficult to start with something and then add to it.
Right, that's why if it's the wrong framing, take it down.
Right, and that's where we're at. We're starting with a whole bunch of buildings there and changing them a bit, but then adding on.
Well, another one of the reasons that our development looks like this is because it's very sustainable to use existing structures that's already there.
Sure.
It's much less sustainable to demolish these, send them to a landfill, and bring in all new construction material. So in terms of sustainability, it's definitely the best to take what you have and reuse it. So there's another reason that we kept the development.
What's the building to sustainability? Make it modern, make it something better. Just because they're sustainable or usable.
I mean, but there are also constraints to doing that. We're obviously playing a hand that we're dealt in terms of what's there, trying to dress up what's there, putting on new siding, putting on stone veneer, upgrading the appearance of those structures. To say demolish those, I just think it's not going to work in terms of economics of the development.
Well, this kind of doesn't work for the aesthetics of the whole development either. You're trying to make one big development. I applaud. It's a good thing. But I don't know what, keeping this old building, that old building, this old building, they're all dissimilar. What ties it together to make it a housing?
Well, all of the buildings in development are going to receive new siding, so they're all going to match. They're going to look. It's definitely an upgrade from what's existing. Some of the siding is worn, some of the paint's coming off. So it will with new. It's amazing how much new siding can do to the building.
It sure can. Not changing the shape much. It's leaving it. It's the same profile. Period. Non-debatable.
Absolutely appropriate.
All right.
The owner of the property is here, Mr. Belaney, so you can comment on some of these questions. If you allow him after Mr. Delaney, if you finish your question with Mr. Devaney, we can have Mr. Belaney talk about these issues and what he's confronting in terms of this project.
Okay.
So anything else from Mr. Devaney? No other questions?
Not at this time.
Then Mr. Belaney, are you there?
Yes.
You have not been sworn. Why don't you get you sworn first, then we'll tell the board who you are.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your full name, sir?
Ken Belaney, Bellani.
Mr. Belaney, what's your relationship to Bella Rosa?
I am the principal owner.
Okay, and you're familiar with this, obviously. How long have you owned it?
5, 6 years.
Okay. Why don't you just give us some of the history of your involvement since you've owned it, and then we'll talk about the questions that were raised this evening about, the what ifs in terms of the existing buildings and what could be done with them.
Okay. When I acquired this property, it was a mess, an absolute mess. The police were there on a regular basis because of the behavior of the tenants. I went in and systematically got these old tenants out that were causing problems, and went in and renovated the buildings. I have spent probably, I'm going to say, somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 of my own money to upgrade these buildings to the extent to which they've been upgraded so far. I believe that I've done a pretty good job of that. I have not taken nickel one out of these properties. What I have done is I've used whatever profit there is on an operating basis and rolled it back in to make various improvements outside and inside. The situation is this. My name is Kay Belaney, not Kay Hovnanian. And while I appreciate some of the comments that are being made as well and be better, I simply will not be in a position to do that. I do believe strongly that buildings will be cohesive. They're not all the same. They're not all the same shape, but I don't see why that's necessary. If I took the Lakeside Manor sign down and they were just a bunch of buildings there, they could be that too. They don't have to be a Lakeside Manor. But I will say this, what you're seeing now is my best shot. I'm not going to be able to stick build. I have priced out stick building. I've priced out the modular units, and while I am well able to afford the buildings that I'm proposing, the stick building is going to put this over the edge. I would also like to say that a vast majority of my tenants drive compact cars, not big gas guzzling SUVs. So you can make the comment that everybody's buying SUVs. Well, my tenants aren't. My tenants all go to work. Today I was up there and there were two cars in the entire parking lot because my tenants go out and work. And I can tell you also the last time the police were at my property, and that was probably about 3 years ago, maybe 4. I got a phone call from the Hopatcong Police Department asking me to come out to the property because one of my tenants smelled gas and called as an emergency to the police department. I don't have gas on the property. So the last time the police were there, they were there for some reason that, there was no basis in fact. They were there because one of the tenants said they smelled gas. So, I've spent, I can tell you right now, I've spent $100,000 out of my own pocket for professional costs. So I've spent $100,000 on this property. I haven't put a shovel in the ground yet. I just have a whole bunch of paper. So this is my best shot. And we tried to address some of the comments, I believe, of Mr. Riley, if I'm not mistaken. He spoke about, he didn't like the 133 building having the angled roof and the other one. I paid the architect to hire somebody to come in and investigate whether we can put a second floor on those buildings, as he suggested. We can't do it, but I don't have the money to take it down and put up a new one. I do plan on bringing my son into this business at some point in the future, and he's going to own this property at some point. And quite frankly, what you're looking at is it's going to look the way it looks now for the next 35 years until he has to retire. I'm not permitted to make these improvements. I think I'm spending basically $2 million of my own dollars to do what I've proposed. It's not perfect. I understand that, but it's a heck of a lot better, and it's going to be a heck of a lot cleaner than what's there now. And I will also venture to say that many of the businesses along Lakeside Boulevard, as they continue to struggle, they've struggled since the day I moved in there. I'm not necessarily referring to my tenants, but other businesses on that strip. They can certainly benefit from another, 16 families living in the area. So as I said, this is my best pitch. This is it. I've tried to do well by the community. I just poured $50,000 into the remodeling of the salon. I don't know what else to tell you other than I can't afford to do the things that you are recommending. And as I said, in a perfect world, maybe that can be done. But in Kay Belaney's world, this is the best I can do.
Thank you, Mr. Blaney. Any questions for Mr. Blaney?
Any questions from the board? Okay. Do you have another witness?
Yes, we have our traffic engineer, Jay Troutman.
Okay, I believe he's been sworn in already.
Good evening.
He was this evening. He did not testify last time, but Mr. Troutman prepared a traffic report that was on file with the board, and he has conducted a traffic study. He's going to come tonight and talk about what he found and what he studied. So, Jay, you there?
Yes,
Why don't you just briefly, just in terms of your qualifications, you're a licensed engineer, is that correct?
yes, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. Field of specialty is traffic engineering.
And you've testified before planning boards of adjustment in this state?
Yes, I'm principal with McDonough and Ray Associates, 30 years experience testifying before planning and zoning boards and also representing the planning and zoning boards that our firm represents. Been accepted at over 100 planning and zoning boards in the state of New Jersey as a traffic expert.
And you're familiar with this site, obviously?
Yes.
And the development? Okay. Any questions regarding his qualifications as a traffic engineer?
I don't think so. Anybody have questions about his qualifications? Shall we, any objection to accepting him as an expert witness? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Jay.
Yes, as Mr. Malman said, we completed a fully detailed traffic impact study that's been filed with the board. The tasks we completed as part of that study include site visits and field investigations, roadway and site peak hour traffic counts, site traffic estimates and distribution of that traffic to the road network, future no build and build traffic volume projections, intersection capacity calculations, review of available vehicle crash data for the area, and review of the parking and on-site traffic circulation. As Mark testified and showed you on the plan, the property in terms of traffic, all of its access will come through the existing street system using either Ryerson or Edsel. So there's no proposed driveways directly to Lakeside. All site traffic is of such a level that it could use either Ryerson or Edsel to access Lakeside. Those two intersections at Lakeside are under Sussex County jurisdiction, and they have accepted that access pattern in the plan that's before you tonight. Formal approval will be forthcoming from Sussex County. The traffic study shows that the access and circulation pattern that's shown in the plans provides adequate roadway capacity for the site-generated traffic to enter and exit the site, and that the roadways accessing Lakeside are currently operating safely. The impact from the 16 additional residential units does not meet the definition of a significant traffic impact. It's a fairly low intensity generator detailed in our report. When you look at the comparison, the delay comparison between intersection delays that occur under the no build condition versus the delays that would occur under full build condition, there's really not a measurable impact from these additional trips. You're talking about an additional vehicle every 5-10 minutes coming in and out of these existing intersections. And I guess this is important in this case because if you look at some of the permitted land uses in this zone, you could have, much larger, much more intense type of commercial uses, for example, like Quick Check, that generates a lot of turning movements in and out of the driveway. And that's actually in our report. We counted all those turning movements as well as the movement out of Ryerson and Edsel. And the real, it's very stark when you look at what a commercial driveway generates in and out of Lakeside versus what the residential character type uses generate. So that's really, I think, the strongest point to make in terms of traffic is that you're in a whole different world when you compare 16 residential units to some type of corporate commercial use that could go on there, like a pharmacy or a bank branch or a Quick Check.
Except that people tend to leave for work at the same time. Right now, we're in the middle of a COVID restrictions and a lot of people working from home. But when people go back to work, they're going to tend to leave for work at about the same time. And that's really going to pack Ryerson and Edsel.
So we've, it's interesting, when you study a residential development, that's actually not the case. People have a variety of different vocations that they attend to. Like if you just sample your own neighborhood even, you know, I have school teachers that have to be out before the 7 o'clock hour. I have a librarian that leaves after 9. I have a retired couple that makes their own schedule. The variety of trip patterns when you assimilate residential users is actually spread over a 5-hour period, which is why people are often surprised at how low any number of trips is in an hour from these types of uses. And it kind of proved itself when we did the traffic counts. We could see that even from the existing tenants on the site. There's the, you know, obviously the existing units, we could count that traffic activity and that parking activity to sort of prove what I just described. We also reviewed the parking and on-site traffic circulation that Mark testified to, and we found that that complies with the codes, the residential site improvement standards, which would govern a residential development. Throughout this analysis and in my report, I firmly believe that this use of the property is probably one of the lowest, you know, traffic impact uses you could put on a property of this size in a commercial zone. I know there are delays for left turns getting out of Edsel and Ryerson onto Lakeside Boulevard, but there are gaps in Lakeside to make those movements. You know, we counted those movements. Quick Check has hundreds of movements that actually occur in and out of Lakeside, you know, on an hourly basis, and this would be nothing close to that. So I'm confident that this traffic impact can be accommodated by the existing street system. As stated, Sussex County has looked at it. They've looked at all the sight lines in detail at both intersections, and they've accepted the access pattern as well. And I'd be happy to answer questions that anyone might have regarding the analysis.
Before the board speaks, just a couple of questions for you, Jay. So in your opinion, traffic can safely and efficiently enter and exit this site the way it's designed?
Yes.
And in terms of parking, let's just go over that for a second. So the RSIS controls the standard for parking spaces on residential sites, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the standard in the RSIS?
The standard is 9 foot wide by 18 foot long parking spaces.
Okay, which is what this proposed in this plan, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Does anybody from the board have questions? Anybody at all?
Was there any? Go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
Go, Bob.
All right, on Ryerson, that's a steep drop off. How do you do an analysis between that and Edsel when one is a hill when you're coming up that to make the left? You're in a different kind of traffic environment than you are when you're pulling out of Edsel. Edsel's the one that backs up because Ryerson doesn't have as many people using it because of the steep slope there. So how does that play into your analysis?
Well, we noticed that as well, and we think you're right. I think, you know, the majority of the trips out, even as low as they are, will gravitate toward Edsel. So that's how we modeled it and found that, again, it's not really going to measurably change things. It's not going to really be noticeable out there. There is a factor for the Ryerson analysis. There's actually a grade factor that you can plug in that, you know, reduces the capacity because they know the bar is, you know, on a grade and has to need extra time. So that is worked into the analysis.
And my second question is, you do this through a time study of vehicles that enter and exit area, correct?
We use software to estimate the average delay per vehicle making movements like at the stop sign to get out.
do you do an analysis of the area with the number of homes to determine how many vehicles are actually in that inhabited area? Or do you base on what your study shows that you see, not what the physicality of how many things you have in the area?
Well, I actually did a little bit of both. We counted the actual cars that come out during peak hours, and that's summarized in the report. And then we did go through actually and use the aerial photography. I think we exhibit, the first exhibit that was up tonight that shows the houses around and who potentially, would be accessing these streets. And you can see from that pattern, makes sense with the numbers that we were counting going out.
It seems like the majority, though, from that whole area, the volume block goes right to Etzel. That's the one find the majority of little ancillary cutoff streets. Everything seems to go to Etzel, and that seems to be the backup point.
That is where a majority of the traffic went out, but it wasn't any backup point getting out of Etzel. It was a fairly smooth flow. I mean, if you just want to compare coming out of Etzel during the morning peak hour, there were 36 cars coming out and 30 in the PM peak hour. Compare that just to one of the quick check driveways, there were 150 that got out in the morning and 170 that got out in the afternoon.
Yeah,
So
but you still have people working from home and not bothering going out. Whereas you talk about the quick check, people still have to eat and people still have to shop. People still have to put gas in the car.
You go on Route 80 at 8 o'clock in the morning now, you won't find as much traffic. But if you went on 8 o'clock in the morning before pre-COVID, you would find that it's a parking lot. Same thing with that. I know people that live down there, they would find that in the morning, they have to allow an extra 20 minutes to make that left-hand turn out of there safely. So there is a large volume that use that specific road.
In your discussions with county, did anybody think about putting a traffic light at the exit of the quick check and Ryerson Road to control that traffic? I mean, when you go out of that quick check and you try to turn left, you'd be standing. I mean, I get gas there all the time. I'm 5 minutes, 10 minutes before I can turn left.
We've been talking to the county about putting a light there for years and years and years, and they just say no.
Hey, 200,000.
I mean, it might be coming someday, but we can't count on it.
Okay.
Too bad we're not Walmart. Get our own light.
Right. That's in Roxbury.
Yep. Wrong county. Sorry.
Right. It's tough to do a traffic study, I'm sure, during this COVID stuff. And I mean, the things I mentioned are fact, but I bring them up because, well, just because. I'm sure that your job is very difficult right now, even more difficult because you got to try to project what's going to happen in the future when people are back at work.
I agree with that, sir. And, it is an interesting topic because, some things have changed forever with this, there's been this new pattern where, a lot of folks have learned that remote work in some places is going to be here to stay, which will hopefully have a positive impact on that Route 80 situation well into the future.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, have you tried to get any traffic data from the county from that's pre-COVID, from even from the quick check study or any other studies that they've done?
Yes, the quick check study is about 12 years old, and those volumes were higher, than what was happening in 2021, as you would expect. So I was able to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, because even going back 12 years, it's not like the population in 12 years have changed drastically in Hopatcong. And the traffic pattern is just very, it's everyone knows it. In the morning, everyone's rushing to get out of town, and in the evenings, everyone's rushing to get back into town. So, that's the traffic pattern. And it is a tight, in the morning, there's a tight peak, and there's a tight peak in the afternoon. And that's has always occurred.
Lakeside's the main artery, period.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's a bedroom community. We have one way in, and you same way out and circulate.
Okay, anything else from the board?
I mean, it seems to me like it's a pretty extensive traffic study they did. I mean, that study is for today, and it's the last couple of months. I mean, we can't predict the future. I mean, they're doing what they can for today. I mean, so they've pretty much given us a pretty good answer. I can't anticipate what's going to happen 2 years or 3 years or 5 years down the road. I mean, that's my take on the traffic study.
I believe that the impact is compared to what comes out of Quick Check, what's going to come out of these two streets is not that critical. The problem's Quick Check. The problem is all that volume going on, 170 vehicles and coming out of Quick Check going
In an hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. And bringing 5 or 10 more, adding 5 or 10 more cars to that circulation, I personally don't see that as an issue. I still have my issues with the building number 33 though.
I mean, getting off the topic a little bit, there are a bunch of different buildings. They're going to siding them all the same siding, put the same cultured stone on every building. You're going to know it's one complex. They took some old buildings and they're doing the best they can with what they have to work with. It looks a whole lot better now than it did. I mean, if you look at that hair salon, the work that they did on the front of it is beautiful. So I don't necessarily need the building to all be completely symmetrical and look exactly the same. I kind of like it the way it is. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you, Bob. Other comments from the board? Okay, Mr. Pitney, do you have anything else?
It's Mr. Malman from Day Pitney, but Mr. Pitney was a fine gentleman, so take that as a compliment.
Mr. Malmart.
We have one more witness, John McDonough, who testified last time. He's our professional planner. John, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Stay there. So recall Mr. McDonough testified last time regarding the variances. Perhaps you can just update your testimony based upon the modifications to the plan we've discussed this evening and we've made since December.
Sure thing. This remains a really good application from a planning standpoint. The positives that were there before are even better now with the interactive process between the board and this applicant. Responsive, particularly with respect to the safety aspect of eliminating those spaces on Lakeview and moving down over to Ryerson, and they are going to be mitigated in terms of impact by virtue of the landscaping that the applicant is proposing. Again, all of the positives previously put on the record, such as affordable housing, such as finishing off this site and the great care that this applicant has and will putting into this particular site, carry forth aesthetically, functionally, and of course the provision of new housing stock as well. A very well balanced plan, I think a very well thought out plan, and all of the relief that we testified to before carry forth with the same rationale, the same justification, even stronger. 2 new forms of relief being triggered tonight are relatively modest. The relief for the front yard parking for those 5 spaces that have moved from Lakeview down to Ryerson are again mitigated by landscaping and are small in scale or boutique in scale. And then over on the Edsel side, where the building has shifted ever so slightly closer to the road, 13.7 feet is the setback. Again, that's a couple feet closer than the previous application or the previous iteration, 50 feet being required. But bear in mind, the effective setback here is 41 feet, given that unique geometry of the way Edsel relates to the right-of-way line. So the effective setback is there, notwithstanding the fact that the analytic of the 13.7 does require board relief. But again, for all the reasons that I put on the record before, the justification is there for the board to move favorably on this application under D1 and the interrelated C relief and design exceptions that the applicant is seeking. no substantial detriment to the surrounding area or impairment to your zone plan. Again, an applicant that has, I think, put great care into fixing up this property and finishing it off. With that, I believe the statutory criteria remain justified and approval is warranted here.
Thank you, Mr. McDonough. No further questions.
All right, I have another question. Right now, there's a dumpster down there. Where does that go?
Mark can address that. Mark, are you still with us?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Oh, there you go.
The dumpster will be incorporated into the parking lot. It'll be located behind the existing building, sort of in the center of those parking spaces.
Is it shown on the plans?
Yeah, it's shown on the plans, yes.
Okay,
Why don't you put your exhibit back up if you don't mind, the rendered exhibit you had earlier today?
Okay. And it's located right here behind the existing buildings, behind the building that's getting the two-story addition on
I
top.
see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for the witness?
Well, if the board has no questions, I'd like to open it up to the public. Let's open this to the public for any comments or questions. Anybody from the public wants to comment on this and any questions about it, please go to the bottom of your screen, click on reactions and raise your hand and wait to be sworn in by our attorney. Danielle, do you see anyone?
Brian Addis.
Okay, Mr. Addis.
Mr. Addis, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And again, full name with a spelling?
Brian Attis, Attas.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Addis.
Just some comments and then some questions. You know, making improvements, to that area is very important. So I would never actually disparage anybody from actually making improvements. Last time actually we were asked if, a business can expand in that area, which was on the corner of the automotive center. It was all about, expanding, improving their business, bringing more to the community and everything else. Bad decision. All right, we got screwed. The neighborhood got screwed. It's a junkyard over there now. So the reason why I bring that up is, we know we have a drainage issue. We have a flood issue. Everyone said we have flooding issues over there. Right? Everyone says we have traffic issues there. So, when if this gets approved, I want to know really from this board, what some of the mitigating factors we're going to, be dealing with years from now, when we have flooding. I hear things about the 500-year storm, the 100-year storm. These storms are happening now. They're happening in 5 years. Every year they're happening. So maybe some of the math needs to be updated on the stormwater management. I'm not sure. But it's something that should be looked at.
Mr. Addis, did you see the stormwater management plan and calculations?
I looked at it. It looks like we're putting another, I guess it looks like we're putting their, freshwater wetlands. We're calling it a stormwater basin now. That's closer to someone else's property. And my questions about that specific wetlands, which is really in my backyard. There's a 50-foot setback, I guess, where they can actually start doing construction. I want to know that measurement, where that 50-foot starts and where it ends as it goes back into the property of where they want to do development. Is that even accurate? I mean, really, my understanding is those wetlands have, I've been here for 27 years. My understanding from other neighbors who've been here a lot longer than I have, that it's been bigger than that. And you can see things have been sort of just pushed back and closed in probably over the years. So, I mean, is that measurement right? Is the 50 feet correct, from that point where they measured from? So I don't know if anybody can answer that question here, but
Mark, you understand the question, Mark? You answer that?
I can. The measurement is correct. Those wetlands are accurately shown. The way the process works is that someone goes out there, a wetland scientist went out and located the limits of the wetlands. Then they were surveyed. And then that plan goes to the DEP, and the DEP comes out and they verify the limit of the wetlands. And they adjust them as needed until the location that's shown on the plan that you're looking at is accurate. Then they do research and they look at things like endangered species and other value, things that impact the value of the wetlands, and they assign that 50-foot buffer. And then that 50-foot buffer is added based on that survey location of the wetlands. All of that is reviewed by the DEP and approved by the DEP. So the wetlands are accurate.
It just looks very
That 50-foot
disturbed back
buffer
there.
is.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk-
John Rush,
I
do
didn't mean to
you
talk
have
over
any comment about that?
Excuse me? Alan, did you defer to me? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, John.
No, the applicant's engineer did, describe the process, the way it occurs. The environmental scientist goes out, he looks at the soils, he looks at the vegetation, he looks at the groundwater conditions, and based on that criteria, they establish the limits of the wetlands. Now, the wetlands, they can change, and the LOI that was established is for 5 years. And the practice is to, you don't look at how wetlands may change and how it may vary. You look at a snapshot, what it is today, and that's how it's regulated by the state. The municipality does not regulate wetlands. It's regulated by the state. Like the applicant's engineer said, they come out and they validate it. And when they go out to look at what the consultant delineated, it is not uncommon for them to shift a flag here and there and move that wetland line. It's not just a desktop stamp that the DEP does. They do go out and they do validate it.
Thank you, John.
While I
Okay.
appreciate that, you can see areas that, whether it's 5 years or it's got to be longer than I've been here, that have been pushed back. So I do dispute the measurement in some way, although I have no historical value on where that was. But you look at boulders, fill, things that have been pushed back, so into that area. So it's there. If DEP doesn't see that or they don't look at that, that's fine. The other thing is, I didn't see a back elevation. Everybody's talking about the appearance of the front from Lakeside Boulevard. Well, now I got one big building in my backyard. So what is that appearance going to look like? Before at least it was two buildings. And so now it's just going to be one long building. What does that look like, from the rear? And what's the appearance going to look like for the residents back here?
I think
Can
there,
you address that?
yeah, there is a rear elevation drawing there.
Yep.
On A 5.0.
I'm just not sure I saw it, so.
Brian, can you put that up? Yeah, please put up the exhibit, please.
Like a loading dock over there.
Mark, I believe that the previous exhibit had the sheet A 5.0.
5.0, yeah.
Which
That's 5.1.
Mark, that might have been included in the previous exhibit that I emailed to you, the sheet A 5.0. If you can't find it, I can try to screen share it.
Why don't you do that if you have it?
Okay.
I guess my question is, do you bring the stone veneer? Do you bring these gables? Do you bring anything to the rear of this building versus just a straight up, as I think Mr. Duncan may have mentioned, the back of a Walmart, kind of a situation?
Well, it doesn't look like there's much. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Bottom one is the rear elevation.
Yeah. What's the total height on that? I can't quite read that.
The height is 28 feet.
From
28.3.
28 feet from grade.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, we certainly could wrap the rear elevation with the the stacked stone veneer.
And what is, if you I don't know if you have this measurement, what is the, you got the 50-foot measurement from the freshwater wetlands. What is the measurement from that to the actual back of this building? Because I've been back there, I saw where the markers are. Pretty clear, from where I sit. I'm just wondering how far is that from the building?
We need the site plan to answer that. Maybe Mark.
I can answer that one. That's looks like about 70 feet from the wetland.
So it's additional 20 feet beyond the markers that are currently there.
Correct.
And how big are those patios in the back?
They're,
by 8?
six
The patios are what?
6 by
8
8?
feet by 8 feet?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when it does flood, I want to know what the town's going to do to fix it, because they haven't done anything to fix it in the 27 years I've been here.
What was that last question, Mr. Addis?
I want to know what the town will do to fix the flooding issue when it floods, because it does flood. The town hasn't done anything for it in 27 years, except maybe take a backhoe and remove some leaves, from an area. So what's the town going to do when you have a lot of water coming into that area? What's the fix? What's the remediation at this point?
I can represent that the flooding will continue. This project will not mitigate the flooding, and for the town to mitigate that flooding, it requires a very substantial infrastructure project to replace the downstream piping, basically from Esso all the way down to the county road. And we actually don't have an easement through that area where the piping is. It's actually on private property, but we would have to secure an easement and upgrade all that piping. And that would be the fix. At the moment, the town does not have that planned, but the corrective action is clear.
So it is what it is.
Oh, stop.
Okay, Mr. Addis, do you have anything else?
I don't. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody else from the public like to comment or question this application? Anybody at all?
John Young?
Mr. Young?
Muted.
John, you gotta unmute yourself.
Mr. Young, you're muted. You're muted, John. Go to the bottom of your screen.
No,
left
it's not
corner.
on the bottom of my screen. It's on the top, and I was unmuted.
Okay, well, you're unmuted now.
I have a couple of concerns, a few questions. And first of all, my name is John Young. I live at 29 Rapallia Road.
You should be sworn in by Bill Haggerty.
Mr. Young, and Mr. Young, please raise your right hand. Okay. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Okay, as I said, John Young, 29 Rapallia Road, Hopatcong, New Jersey. I am also co-owner of 3 Edsel Road, Hopatcong, New Jersey. That home has been in my family since 1953. I have a lot more than 27 years experience with this general area. And as Mr. Addis stated, he believed that wetlands, which commonly referred to as a swamp, was a lot bigger, and it was. However, that was before Mr. Bellini owned the property. And I do have to say that fundamentally, I am in favor of this project, as this area of Lakeside Boulevard needs a positive shot in the arm. And it also encouraged some of the neighboring properties to clean up their act. And I won't mention any names. But I am certainly concerned about what it does to the water situation in the area. As it's been talked about a lot, that there's been some flooding in the area. To me, it's not just a stormwater runoff because there is standing water there all the time. And I have noticed in the past 10 or 12 years that the water table seems to be increasing a bit because we have some water issue in some of the local homes that we didn't have 30 years ago. So that's my concern with the water. And I don't see how, if I heard it right, the parking lots are not impervious coverage. The parking lots are pervious. Did I hear that correctly?
They were going to be pervious.
Okay,
You're right,
my
John.
question there is, when the parking lot is full of cars, is that the same? Because if you take a vacant piece of grass and park 100 cars on it, it's not the same.
Yes, it's still pervious. It's going to be constructed with pavers with gaps in between that allows water to seep in. So you're right, when there are cars there, the water's going to land on the cars, but the water runs off the cars will get onto the pavement and will get into the pervious paving system.
Just a point, okay? I also heard the sidewalks are 6 feet wide.
That's correct.
Is that
The
correct?
sidewalks against the parking lots are 6 feet wide.
Are the sidewalks concrete?
Yes.
Okay. My concern with the water is we are definitely adding to the impervious coverage of the general area because we're talking about the addition of 2 buildings and some sidewalks. So again, my concern is the water issue, and I don't believe it's just the stormwater or storm management. I also believe it may add to the standing water that's already there, and that is a concern of mine. Another concern, and I also want to say that Mr. Bellini has definitely improved the property since he purchased it. It looks a whole lot better. You know, and as I said, fundamentally, I'm not against it, but I do have some concerns. And another concern of mine that came up as I listened tonight, the one building, the 2-story building, I believe that's the one that's being added on top of the garage, that only has an entrance at the front with no parking lot at the front. And someone brought it up that people are going to have to park in the rear and walk around to the front. And my concern is when somebody comes home with a carload of groceries, a curb to a modest SUV or small pickup poses no problem at all. So I'm visualizing people parking on the curbing out front on Lakeside Boulevard while they unload their car. And that would be if you're entering Lakeside Boulevard from Ryerson, that's a visual obstruction. So I have a little concern there. And I think that's pretty much it.
Oh, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Would anybody else from the public like to comment or question this application at all? Anybody at all? Danielle, see anyone?
Yes, there's a Leslie.
Yep, Leslie C.
Hi, Leslie Cole, C-O-A-L-E, Hopatcong.
Okay, hold on a second and be sworn in by our attorney, Mr. Haggerty, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Cole.
And where is Ms. Cole residing? What's her address?
09 Francis Avenue.
All right, go ahead.
I spoke last time. Some of my concerns are quality of life and safety issues. I'm glad to see that the parking spaces in front were taken out of the building. I think it's 33, number 33. I still have a concern about how close those front doors are to Lakeside Boulevard.
Well, unless you knock the buildings down, there's nothing much you can do about that.
Well, no, I'm wondering if some kind of those stanchions or pole cement. Yeah, you know what I mean, to block. I mean, even in Ms. Crock mentioned, you know, that there's one entrance to the place and yeah, they can exit through a window, but there was an accident there, and the people are going to get stuck if they could have some kind of a secondary safety option there, that the car, if something happens, it doesn't go into the home. Okay, does that make sense? Am I explaining it properly?
Yeah, I understand what you mean there.
Okay, and the other part of quality of life is the sound. Those things are right on Lakeside. And I live over on France, and I can hear the motorcycles and the trucks and everything else going through there. And the sound quality inside the house I can't even imagine what it's going to be like there. So I don't know if there's going to be some kind of soundproofing done.
Well, I don't think that's changing at all. As I said, unless you knock places down and rebuild them farther back from the road, there's not much you could do about that.
Okay.
But the people are here and they're listening to your comments, and they will take all of it into consideration, I'm sure.
Okay. As far as the traffic, I've visited friends there. I've had to try to pull out both from Check, both from Phil and Ryerson, and they're nightmares during rush hour traffic, even sometimes during the day. As previously mentioned, it is the main roadway into Hopatcong, and with the continued development of the area, even during the summer, the traffic increases maybe double, even a quarter. More people coming in and out of town, making it extremely difficult to cross those single lane, or in some area that extra turn lane, so it's almost like 3 lanes. The back of the building or the front of the building, the new apartment area, people are going to be permitted to have picnic tables and barbecue outside?
Well, you'd have to ask Mr. Belani.
Like I said, those are just thoughts. They're gonna,
Yep.
They're out here in the country, and what do you do when you come out in the country? There's a exit door, entrance door there. People try to do it on balconies. What kind of spacing is that going to leave? Is that going to be, say, in the paperwork that they sign? We understand that we can't do this or can do this, or is there an area where they can do it that it's going to be allowed? So that's pretty much it. The quality of life pertaining to the sound, being right on the road there for the front, that 33 building, and putting some kind of a barrier up that would prevent any kind of vehicle or something entering those.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Before we go to Ms. Modes, would anybody from the proposed operation like to comment on Ms. Cole's comments?
Yeah, I'll address those. That's no problem. First of all, the issue of using those front doors. Those front doors are being used and have been used to gain access into out of the buildings, the businesses that are there. So I don't see them being any less safe than they are right now under the existing use. In terms of barbecues and things like that, we don't have any balconies. We have patios in the back of the large building that we're proposing. I frankly haven't really given any thought to how we would handle that. I suppose that if the tenants were interested in having some type of a barbecue area, I would accommodate them, but I don't really think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of flat grassy area back there where they'll be doing excess. In terms of rules and regulations. I mean, I don't permit them to wash their cars back there. That's different. I don't permit them to repair their cars back there. We put the enclosure in for the recycling and the garbage dumpsters. So we're doing our best to keep it neat and clean and under control. And as I said, I frankly haven't really given any thought to barbecuing. I know that there is a small, I would say maybe 6 by 8 or 10 foot area in the grass lawn behind 35, where sometimes tenants will barbecue there, but I haven't really seen that in the last couple of years. I know they did it more frequently in the past than recently.
Well, thank you, Mr. Belani. Okay, let's go to Ms. Modes, Mara Modes. And you're muted right now. You're unmuted.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And your name again?
Mara, M-A-R-A, last name is Modes, M-O-D is in David, E-S is in Sam.
And your address?
3, it's in Road, Hopatcong, New Jersey.
Go ahead, Ms. Modes.
Okay. Going along with what Mr. Young said, if the runoff from the water on cars and stuff, what about cars that leak oil or gas or whatever? Isn't that going to go into the ground and into the water system?
Mark, can you address that?
Yes, the permeable pavers are designed to provide water quality treatment. So and it's for runoff and contaminants that you would expect in runoff from car and driveway and parking lot areas. So that gets collects some of the oils and greases will go into the ground, but there's a filter system, the pavers, which filters out that material. So any of the water that is potentially contains oils or greases would go through that material and be filtered out and be cleaned before it got into the groundwater.
Okay, because we have had problems with benzene plumes. I also didn't hear anything about fire escapes from the exit windows. Are people just gonna hop out the window? Like, are you gonna put fire escapes back to the exit windows?
Brian, are you there? Is that a code requirement?
Yes, I'm here. So all of the apartments have egress windows, which only allow for the passage of a person, but they allow for the passage of a firefighter with all of his equipment. So I don't see any issues with egress from these buildings in the event of an emergency.
They comply with the code, is that correct?
Yes, they comply with the code. They all have a minimum of 5.7 square feet of clear space. So, like I said, a firefighter with all of his gear can easily pass through an egress window. So, it's all about safety.
Are those egress windows on the first floor or the second floor?
Well, it's all about safety. If I can floor, would I want to wait for a firefighter or would I want to climb down a fire escape?
If I may, the center halls are going to be fire rated according to the construction. So
you're saying they can get out through the center halls?
Yes.
If they can get to the center halls.
There's no requirement for fire escapes in the code for a two-story structure. It's that simple. Two-family houses or two-story houses don't have fire escapes.
Okay. As far as the counting cars part of it, people who come out of Quick Check and everybody have done it to get across the thing. And I don't know if you're taking into consideration of people coming out from the Atkins project. When you make a left turn, you're going across 3 lanes of traffic, and that also, you have to gun it. It includes the people who are coming out of Quick Check across from you, the suicide lane, and the people who have to seriously slow down to pull into the senior center / ball field driveway. So I don't know if that counts into the traffic, but that does count into the town's concerns. And in the summer, we have a lot of people towing boats and everything else. And we already know that we did have the accident over there where the car gunned it from Quick Check and went right through Mrs. Galate's hair salon.
Yeah, that was an accelerator problem, not a driver error.
Okay,
So much
but
better.
it's still a concern that do you have to go across all of those lanes of traffic if you're trying to make a left or whatever. So you might count the cars, but you also have to count the situation. And for those of us who live here, we know how hazardous it is over there. And as far as the 10-unit building, what the man was saying from the back of the building, the name of Lakeside Manor in the back of that building, I would think it was a motel, because that's what it looks like. And if you say Lakeside Manor, that's what it conjures up in people's minds. And that's my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes.
Alan, just a clarification.
Yes, John.
I disagree with the statement that was made that the pervious pavement is going to filter petroleum products and treat them. That's not the case at all. You know, it's going to contaminate the soil. It may contaminate the groundwater. Likewise, if this was permeable pavement, it would be directed to a catch basin, and the same petroleum products would contaminate the soils, contaminate the groundwater at that location also. So, you know, in general, commercial parking lots, we just don't regulate, you know, those discharges. It's regulated by the state, and if there is a discharge, they're going to have to report that to the state and mitigate it in accordance with the state requirement. But, you know, in general, you know, the state, and I'm not aware of any municipality in the state that actually regulates, you know, the treatment of petroleum products off of parking lots.
Thank you, John. Okay, would anybody else from the public like to comment or question this application at all? If you do, please go to the bottom of your screen. In reactions, raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Do you see any, Danielle? I don't see any further. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board at this point?
Two more questions.
I'm sorry, could I just do a brief summation and perhaps talk about how we might proceed, given the fact that we only have 6 members this evening?
What is summation? Could I just ask a couple questions of Mark, please, on the lighting and the landscaping plan? Mark and John, you've looked at the lighting plan on this, and there's sufficient lighting in this development?
Yes. Yes, they have sufficient lighting.
I think there's sufficient lighting. I thought it was a little weak, but
Yeah, no, and in fact, you know, in a development like this, you know, it meets the code requirements, but I just don't, you know, sometimes you have to look at it and does the code actually require too much lighting, and you start to get, you know, light pollution, you know, onto residential areas because you're lighting it up like a commercial parking lot. So,
you want to balance.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend, you know, more intense lighting.
Okay. And the second question dealt with what Mr. Addis said, what I said before about back elevation of the 10-unit building. We virtually have nothing back there, correct, landscaping wise, Mark?
That's right. There's no landscaping proposed. Back of the building, there's the wooded area behind that building is proposed to remain. And then on the north end of it, where the basin is located, there is some landscaping around the infiltration, the detention basin.
Since so much is coming down, why are we doing nothing to, like, you know, like I said before, it's a horrid elevation for people to look at, which is permanent for them if we vote positive tonight. Why can't something be done to A, enhance those elevations a little bit, and also B, make it a little more, you know, neighborhood friendly, putting in more vegetation to start, you know, I don't want to look at the back of a prison wall, and that looks like what it looks like. Why hasn't anything been done with that? That's not a high cost item to put in vegetation, so the two houses behind it don't have to just look at walls.
Yeah, I mean, the area between the building and where the woods will remain, there's not a lot of room because of the woods for trees, but we certainly could add.
Could you put that plan up, Mark, so we can see it again?
713.
Yeah, this plan also shows the landscaping that's proposed. And you can see this area, the green area between the the building and the woods to remain. There's not a lot of room to add a lot of plantings in there. While there is more space, we could look at some narrower trees or something to break it up. We could also look at some additional foundation plantings to back it up as well, break it up as well. We'd be happy to do that.
Some kind of element to enhance that, what is right now, in my view, naked elevation that is not appealing to the neighborhood.
Are you suggesting, well, anything in particular, the stone detail or anything you're looking at?
I could put 10 things in there, but I'm going to be told that's not in the budget. I just think it's a very boring thing that takes me away from thinking this is a positive thing for the. I think great enhancements done to that area by what he's done so far during his ownership. I think great improvements have been done. He's been before the board several times. But I look at this and I don't know positive or a negative.
I mean, one option that we could consider to dress up that rear elevation is we could add the stone veneer to the back side to match the front. We could add shutters on the rear elevation also to match the front. We could add awnings over the doors, and then that elevation would be as aesthetically pleasing as the front. And also, you know, the woods obscures the view of back elevation, so you know most people are going to be seeing the front elevation of the building. And also, you know, we dress up the sides of the building as well. So
yeah, but when there are leaves on the trees, when there's not, he's going to be looking at the back of Walmart. Build out some bump outs on it. I mean, you know, you don't have to make the whole thing. You know,
the entire elevation is not straight. It does bump in 2 feet in the center, so it's not one continuous straight elevation. There is the one bump out for the 2 duplex apartments in the center are pushed in 2 feet.
Well, that's in the front. What about in the back?
No, it's on the front and on the back.
On the
back, it bumps in.
Can you zoom in? Can you zoom in, Mark, and show that?
You want me to share my screen?
Well, it's on screen now. Just try to zoom in so you can see it better.
This area.
There you go. Where you can see the bump out in the rear as well as the front.
I can show the elevation too if you want.
With the you have no profile difference to the roof. That 2 foot's going to matter squat when it comes to looking at that elevation. You know,
in terms of the roof, we could, you know, offset the central roof 2 feet to match that bump out. So, you know, that is one option that we could consider to enhance the roof line.
All right, Mr. Melmont, you were going to make some suggestions.
Yeah, I want to just address some of the comments and just talk about procedure where we are. I mean, the question we asked up front was, we only have 6 members, what should we do? And I think I'd like to, you know, consider that question again, and maybe after we do perhaps the straw poll of the board and see where you sit on the various questions we have to help us make a decision as to whether we should ask for a vote this evening or not. But just a couple of comments. It seems like in terms of the issues we have, one is architecture. We've heard quite a bit about that. And I think if the board's going to approve the project, it has to get past the fact that the front is not going to look the same as the back. It just can't. You're dealing with an existing condition, a condition that Mr. needs improved over time, and is committed to make further improvements to it. I mean, this application provides for upgrades to the entire frontage of all those units, converting them from businesses to residential, except for the hair salon. But this is a significant investment to upgrade the appearance of those buildings, modify the roof line, you know, the siding, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll look new, we'll look cohesive. And the fact is that they're not going to be torn down. I mean, the question about taking them down, putting something new there, that's just not an option. So we're playing the hand that we're dealt, so to speak, but we're certainly making it better. In terms of the new construction, we've heard your concerns and comments. The architect's view is that it's going to match or be compatible with what's there today, not exactly, but it will look like a unified theme. I think we can talk about whether we make additional improvements to the rear of the larger building in the back. It's a question for my client to address, but I think that my guess is there's some flexibility there that we could consider, perhaps some additional landscaping in the rear as well to further screen the back of that building. So that's kind of the architecture, you know, bucket of questions. The other drainage, we've heard about flooding and drainage throughout this, but, you know, I think what I've heard from from Mr. Rushke as well as from our expert, you know, we're doing what we can on site. We're complying with regulations. We're detaining water. We're not making the situation any worse. That's our obligation. we can't fix a regional problem. It's been going on apparently for decades. And if you're going to hold this site to that standard, it will never be developed because no developer is going to come in and fix that regional problem. That's a town issue. It's not a developer issue. So as I see it, we're doing what we have to do. We're compliant with the codes. We're compliant with the zoning ordinance. And we've done what we have to have an appropriate design that will basically ensure that this project will function properly in terms of drainage flow. Traffic. We know traffic is an issue. You've heard that from day one, but you've heard from our traffic consultants in terms of numbers of traffic from this use compared to what you could have here. Recall, it's a business zone or a residential zone. This is a light traffic generator. Now, we've heard comments about all people coming and going at the same time. Well, that's not always true because you got people of different ages. Some work, some don't work. And you've had Mr. Troutman's testimony that this will work. The number of cars that will be added to these roads for the project are not going to be significant to the effect that it's going to adversely affect existing conditions. So I think we've demonstrated to you that the traffic situation, although not great and not perfect, will work. And again, not being not perfect may be the way to describe this. This project is not perfect. It can't be. And that's given the fact that we have existing conditions that we're to work with and do the best that we can with. Mr. Blaney gave you sort of a passionate plea to what he's been doing with this property for all these years, upgrading tenants, upgrading buildings. And this is the next in the evolution of this site. And we hope the board will see that and basically get on board and help us get this project off the ground and get built. So in terms of the proofs, I think we've also met the burden on the D1 variance as well as in the bulk variances. Mr. McDonough's run through that. But I wanted to hear from the board and just talk about where you are and maybe have a straw poll on where you're thinking. It sounds to me like some of you are inclined to support, some of you have reservations, some are not inclined to support, but it'd be helpful to me, Mr. Blaine, to understand where you all stand and we can decide whether we go for a vote this evening or not. So that's my suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Danielle, why don't you call the people one at a time and just, we'll just ask them if they're for it, against it, or if they have reservations.
Ms. Giovanni?
He's not here. His screen is on, but I don't see him. So go on to the next person.
Ms. Duncan?
I have reservations on both water, not traffic, and design. Two boxes.
Well, if I can, on water, what's the reservation? I'm not sure what else we can do. What's the question there?
You just asked for a straw poll.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So
I'll
let's
sit
just get a straw poll.
Right.
I'll retract my comment.
Mrs. Crock?
Reservations.
Mr. Ray?
I would vote to approve the application.
Thank you.
Mr. Riley?
I still have some reservations. I know they've done a lot to try to do something with building 33, but that building just reminds me, it's a storefront, and converting a storefront into apartments. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Gilbert?
I still have reservations. Okay, back to you, Mr. Melmont.
Well, I was hoping you'd be more color on what your reservations are, so we can have a discussion about what we might be able to do to address those reservations. On drainage, I'm not sure what the answer is. I think we've designed it the best that we can. Architects have indicated perhaps there are some things that can be done, and landscaping things that can be done. So perhaps we can revisit that in more detail and tell us what you think is required to help get this thing over the finish line.
Okay, Bob?
Can you make my comment?
Bob Duncan.
Okay. You have, tiered structures that you could put together, box together. In doing that, as I've done in construction, I've done modular housing. We've added things onto it just to enhance the profile of what was a box to turn it into something which is more desirable for the surrounding area. And it doesn't mean you have to build a lot, but you have to do a little bit something to make the elevations a little more appealing than a box. I mean, my comments for the front have always been the same. I look at the four buildings technically we're adding. We're adding 3 structures to the one side. They're exactly alike. Boom, boom, boom. Looks like a cookie cutter house. You go and you see the next house that you add on. They're just big houses to put volume in place. They don't have anything to do with architectural culture. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 5 buildings and actually 5 structures. The one just adds up and it's an independent house that's now there. And then you got 3 independent houses that are there. There's no continuity between it. I don't care if the siding matters. There's just something that, okay, we need a space. There it is. It's a box. There it is. It's 3 boxes. There it is. It's 10 boxes. There's nothing that differentiates it to make it look like a design. And Ryan, I'm not knocking your architecture. I know you've thought about it quite well to try to assimilate it, but it's a box and it needs some enhancement to its elevation.
Let's go on to Anthony Bongiovanni.
I do have some reservations regarding potentially ensuring that the flooding does not get worse. I think that would be hardship on the residents. I understand the fact that it's being designed according to code and the like. But it is, it certainly is a concern in an area that has a history of having problems to start with. I do have a concern in terms of the fact that we're taking some commercial properties and turning it into residential, but when you have the proximity of the apartments, if you will, now close to the road like that, I'm not so sure that that wouldn't cause some other problems. I think fundamentally, if it was more of a mixed use where we had commercial on the bottom and residential on the top, that might be more appropriate for that area. Those are kind of the key things that really do concern me. It does take a little bit of thought. I agree. I think that would be an improvement to the overall area compared to what it is today. And I do appreciate Mr. Mulaney's focus in terms of improving that property and the things that he's done in the past several years. The real question is, are we doing the right thing for the town over the long term? We may be, providing a suitable solution that upgrades the area right now for the moment, but does that really satisfy us of what we're looking for the town for the long term, especially in that area? That's the entrance of where people come in to Hopatcong there. So that's a bit of a concern for me as well.
Okay, Judy, you're next. Judy Crock?
Yes, sir. Well, to me, it looks like some kind of an institution to look at. It's so perfect. It looks like something that you would build in another area where you have lots of land. And this is right on the street. And it doesn't appeal to me. That's it. It just does not appeal to me to look at. And to live in it, I don't know that I would want to.
Okay, Bob, Ray?
Listen, I think they're doing the best they can with what they have there. Aesthetically, I think the drawing looks fine. I mean, the building in the back, it may be one big, long building, but from Lakeside Boulevard, I don't know how much of that building you're even going to see. I mean, I think they've tried to address every single thing we've asked them to do. I mean, I don't know what else they can do. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, I other than maybe the water issue, make sure that that's, totally under control. Other than that, I don't have a problem with any of it.
Okay, Phil?
Gosh, I'm still back to 33 and the fact that it was a store. And every time I look at that building, I feel like I should be on my horse and there should be a hitching post right outside where I can throw my reins on my horse and walk into a bar. And it hasn't changed. I know he doesn't want to, he can't do it, and because it's too expensive, but the ideal thing from my perspective would be to move that building back, knock that building back, move it back 10 feet and build a nice little 2-story apartment building where you have access from the back. You don't have to walk all the way from the back, all the way around to the front to get into one of the apartments. I just think that's just what I feel. And I probably am not going to change my opinion on that. Regarding the rest of it, I do think there should be some improvements. Shutters, putting shutters on, putting porches on some type of porch on the back. I mean, to think there's going to be 16 people, 16 families living in there, and they're going to live in that apartment. There's no playground. There's no place for kids to do anything or people to do anything in the back of that. They're all going to be doing it out in the front street those are just my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Phil. And my concerns are, first, we haven't even discussed the other building, the 31, is it, or 30, whatever, the building out front. We haven't even discussed that. And I have concerns about the one apartment where the people have to park in the back and walk all the way around to the front.
That's 33.
33. And the architecture of the big 10 unit building. I think something has to be done on the back for the rear elevation to make it look a little better. So there you have it, Mr. Malmont.
Understood loud and clear. Let me ask this. I understand if there's no support, not enough support for the entire project. Part of the application involved doing a minor addition to an awning by the hair salon. Is that something the board would consider approving?
Let's go. Tell us more about that. I don't recall it.
Did you pull that up?
Ron, are you there?
Yes, I can share my screen.
This is on the beauty salon or the hair salon. There's a little awning piece. I think it's along the side.
Yeah, so this is what's existing. Can you see my screen?
No.
Not yet, no.
There we go.
Okay, so this is the side of 35 Lakeside Boulevard.
Right.
And this photo shows the existing black awning, which, you know, is a small awning. We're going to be in this this grand entry portico that the four tenants are going to use, which is definitely a big improvement over the existing awning. I think with the columns and the triangular pediment, it just, you know, it adds a classy entrance to the side of the building, and it's absolutely an improvement over what's existing.
Ryan, that's the entrance on the side. I was talking about where the hair salon is. This is the other entrance, but
35
on the corner.
I think you wanted to wrap that awning around
the
the
awning
side
on the
on
left-hand
Ryerson.
side.
Correct, exactly right. Is that showing your exhibit at all, Ryan, or not?
I think the only view I have of it is right here. So basically, this awning already exists on the front and on the right-hand side. So we want to add the awning on the left-hand side, which will make it symmetrical. It'll give it a finished look. And you know, I think that would definitely be an improvement, because if you cut off this little corner, it's not symmetrical. It doesn't look quite right. So
I guess the question is, there support for that wraparound awning as well as for the side entrance that Mr. Devaney just described? Those are both on the existing building.
Well, I don't know. We haven't even, I don't even know what it is, really, to tell you the truth.
Is there a drawing on the?
Yeah, this is part of the plan set. It's not something new. It's been part of the set that's been submitted. Ryan, do you have an architectural plan to show that?
hold on a sec.
It was probably discussed at the first meeting. We've just forgotten about it. This is new on the side, but the awning by the beauty parlor was part of the original application.
Oh, I found the drawing. Can you see the sheet A 4.0?
Yes.
Hold on.
Yes.
So can you see the side elevation for 35 Lakeside Boulevard? Wait, I think I have the wrong screen up. Hold on a second.
All right, the left side elevation and the right.
Yes, so number 3, the left side elevation. So this is all we're looking to add. It's an awning. It's 9 foot 10 inches long. It'll make the building symmetrical. It's exactly the same as the awning on the right-hand side, which is already installed.
I don't
So I
have
don't
a
see
problem.
it.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that or the entranceway. I like what you did for the entranceway on the side.
Yeah, this elevation construction is complete, and I think it looks excellent.
So I guess the question, before we get to the bigger issue, would the board be inclined to vote to approve both the awning for the beauty parlor as well as this new side entrance that Mr. Devaney just described? Those are really just site plan approvals.
I wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't know.
There was something about the entrance, as I recall, that it's covered. I don't know. I don't recall exactly what it was, but I know there was something about that side entrance.
That's what you're looking at now. There was an awning over this that collapsed in a snowstorm, and this is a sort of proposed brand new entrance
Right, right.
to really dress it up.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I have no objection to it. What about the other people? Bob?
Looks good to me.
Bob Ray?
Looks good to me.
Bob Duncan?
I find no problem with that. It looks good.
Judy?
Beautiful.
Phil, we have,
Anthony, I like it as well.
Anthony?
Yes, very good.
Okay, Mr. Melmont, it looks like you would have agreement on this.
Give me a motion to approve those two improvements, then I'd like to take maybe a 5-minute adjournment so I can call my client and talk about where we go next. But if the board
Well,
is so
okay,
inclined.
let me just open this to the public before we have any motion.
Sure. You got it.
Any from the public want to discuss just what we are looking at, the awning and the entrance to the beauty parlor? Anybody at all? If you do, go to the bottom of your screen and on reactions, raise your hand. I see no one with the hands raised. So does somebody from, I'll bring it back to the board. Would somebody from the board like to make a motion?
Make a motion for these two parts.
I'll
Second
second
it.
Second,
Yeah, as depicted, sheet A 4.1 of the plans provided to the board. And that's an
Right.
amendment.
Building
Site.
5,
What's that?
building 35.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
yes.
Thank you very much. Could I ask for a 5-minute recess so I can just call my client and talk about next steps?
Sure. I think that'd be an excellent idea. At this point, we will have a 5-minute recess. I'll call the board back together in 5 minute. I will time it on my good old iPhone.
We're not gonna close out though. We're just gonna
No, we're just gonna take a 5-minute recess.
take a break.
We will be back.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a, God.
5 minutes,
Margarita.
starting now.
Margarita.
Cellulite and one iris per kid, and all these things. I mean, this is a completely different business. If you go to the store today in the product section, there is. But I really think that Neiman Blake offer. I don't think I can have enough balance with this. You know, the challenge is a normal licensing agent is only around 25 or 30%. And in this case, I'm paying you $1,000.
With Mark Lacey.
We've got 2 minutes to go.
Milk and graham cracker time.
Here. Oh, baby.
We have 1 minute to go.
Come on, baby. Mad pussycat.
Ten seconds. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Mr. Malmont, you have something for?
I do, yeah. I just spoke to my client. He'd like it, with your indulgence, just to be able to speak to you briefly, and I believe you'd then like to call for a vote. But I'd like to, Mr. Blaney, if you wouldn't mind, to speak for you very briefly before we wrap up. So, Mr.
Go
Blaney,
right ahead.
Thank you. I spent probably the last 4 years working on this, going back all the way to when we started with the land delineation and spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort. It appears that there are problems that some of you guys have that I just can't fix. So I said it before and I'll say it again. This was my best shot. And I think the question you need to ask yourselves before you vote is what I'm proposing better than what's there? Because I need to move on. If this doesn't work, I need to move on to something else. And please don't take that as a threat or anything else. I'm just saying that what I'm proposing is infinitely better than what's there now. It's not perfect. I don't have a limitless source of money to finance it, to make it everything you guys want it to be, but it is what it is. So having said that, I'm prepared to ask for a vote.
Okay, Mr. Malmont, you want us to vote?
yes, please. That's my client's wish.
Okay, now you realize you have to have 5 positive votes.
I understand that.
Okay.
Oh, he has to have a motion.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll have a motion, just a moment.
Okay.
And I suggest that Bob Ray make the motion since he's in favor of it. I always like to have a positive motion, and then people can vote against it if they don't want to. Bob Ray.
I would make the motion to approve it only based on what he's going to spend here and the revenue for the borough, and he's done the best. I think he's done the best he can with the bad situation. I mean, obviously the guy's at the end. He's going to walk away, and then we get nothing. So my vote is to approve it.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have a second? Is there a second? I will second it. Danielle, please call the roll.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
No.
Mr. Duncan,
No.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
No.
Ms. Gilbert,
Abstain. Might as well.
What about
abstain.
Judy?
Yeah,
oh, Mrs. Crock, I'm sorry, I skipped over her. Mrs. Crock,
Judy.
I'm absent, huh?
sorry.
Okay, you have 2 positive votes, 3 negatives, and 1 abstention.
Hey, Alan, can I make a statement?
Sure.
Okay. To the gentleman, Mr. Blaney, who's devoured a ton of cash to put this together. In my honest opinion, I think you're far from having a success of getting this approved by this board. In my opinion, I think for a very limited amount of money, you can have the architect do a little bit of enhancement to some of the elevations. And people like myself who are not crazy about the various elevations in the front of the place, well, I guess I'd have to just accept a lot of that. There's give and take on both sides. And what is, if you give a little and put a little more into the frame aspects of a couple bump outs and things, just to enhance the look of these, what are boxes, I think you'd find that, at least on my vote, and I think a couple other members would be positive for it. I look at that area as a garbage dump in the woods there. There's, to get an enhancement and to get an improvement there would be good. I think in the center of town, we're trying to get something that we need that also works for you with your finances as well as our town's needs. There's concerns with traffic, and I don't think this project's going to take it from a bad situation and make it horrible. The concern I have is with the water, so something has to, what do we do if that's a problem?
But I can't fix that.
I know well, I'm not saying you can. I think you've done an admirable job trying to do that, but I'm saying you've invested a lot of money in what you have so far. So if you walk away with a negative vote and you leave it as is and keep the environment the way it is, you've taken a big loss. And I think for a little bit more on the architectural side, you might be able to find that myself and others are more in favor of it. And I'll say right now that I understand you're not going to be able to change all the front buildings. But I think if you did a little bit better with the back building and at least the 3 on the side, a little bit to make them not look like boxes. When I took my first architectural class, that's what we drew and we got in trouble for. It needs a little enhancement. And I think that's the difference between you and having a successful vote and, you've gone this far. I know how much you've worked on it. I think you have a big add to it. And I agree with Bobby. I think Bobby has a great point. What do we get if we don't get it? Well, you have a garbage dump. And I think it will improve that area. I don't know that many cars are going to add that much traffic flow in comparison to what we already see coming out of Quick Check, which is a hazard in itself. So, I mean, that's my opinion. I think you just need to do a little bit more with the architect with, it's a modular home. I did modular homes and I've added on to them. So it looks like it doesn't look modular.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
If I put decks on it, then people complain about the fact that there are decks there and there are going to be people back there making noise and barbecuing on deck. I just don't know how to make everybody happy. And I'm just very frustrated.
You're not going to make everybody happy, Mr. Blaney. But I pride this board on working with people. There are other boards in the area that work against people. We're not like that. We love to work with people. And everything you've heard us say tonight, it all boils down to one thing, I think, and that is the building in the back. If you do a little more architectural work on that building on the back, I think you might have a positive vote.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Let me just ask a question, Alan. I don't know if I'm out of line here, but we had a vote. If we said, listen, we all fundamentally agree on the project, it's just the aesthetics of the building. If they were, we don't have to talk about engineering anymore. We don't have to talk about traffic studies anymore. If they came back and just addressed that, I mean, I hate to see this project walk away from the town. I mean,
Bob, I think if he addressed the architecture of the building in the back, the elevations and brought it back to us, I think he would get a positive vote. Maybe not unanimous, but definitely positive.
Mr. Malman,
Yeah.
would you like the board to retain jurisdiction to consider that?
Yes, please. No harm in that.
Harm, and if you decide not to come back, you can just notify the board secretary. But otherwise, what we could do, we could carry this next month's meeting if that's what you would so desire to afford you that opportunity.
I see no harm in that.
Do we need a motion, Bill?
No, I don't.
No.
Yeah, let's take a motion, continue jurisdiction of this application, carry it to the next month's meeting without further notice.
Okay, somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
Ray?
That mo-
Somebody
I'll
want to
make the
second it? We just, Judy seconded it.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much, gentlemen, everyone who came.
When will this be scheduled for now?
Well,
It's just
you-
carried to next month. I'll talk to you. It's
Yeah,
scheduled.
talk to Danielle about that because we have a couple of things coming. So she'll talk to her tomorrow or the next day, and she'll give you the correct date.
But with
Remember,
no
we added
further
that one
notice?
more.
Well, we have to give the date now just to keep it as consistent. So do we have the,
Oh, okay, Danielle, do you know when it would be?
Hold on, let me just put my calendar up.
Didn't we add a date? Didn't we add a date in June?
That's, yeah, June 1st is gonna wait.
First.
We could do
June
the
1st?
1st or the 15th.
just carry for the first for now. We'll get back to you between now and then.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. Thank you again.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. We have one more new application. Janelle 3 LLC, block 40001, lots 8.01 and 8.04, 175 Sparta Stanhope Road. And
Sharon, I
again,
need to recuse
have
myself.
the mayor and the councilman recuse themselves, as well as Mr.
Bongiovanni. I'm here.
There you are. Anthony,
Yes.
you're going to recuse yourself also?
Yes, I'll recuse myself from this. correct.
Okay, Mr. Bongiovanni is recusing himself because he's involved with this project. The
That leaves-
applicant would like to relocate a previously approved 7,200 square foot building to reduce disturbance of steep and critical areas, conversion of 1,120 square feet of industrial space on the second floor of the building to a residential unit for use by caretaker, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason that mayor and councilman had to recuse themselves is because this is a C variance,
D variance.
Variance.
C variance, right?
D.
D variance.
D variance.
Okay, so who is representing Janelle 3? Would that be you, Mr.
Caputo. Mo Caputo, Denville, New Jersey. I am representing Janelle 3 LLC. You basically stated what the application is about. Given certain circumstances, A, the time, B, the fact that there's only 5 members and we do have a use variance, but we have 3 parts of the application. One part is just basically to correct a resolution, which we can probably do, have some testimony on that. That'll take about 2 or 3 minutes, hopefully.
Right.
We are moving a building 10 feet. I'm hoping that testimony will not take very long either. And then there's the use variance. Now, when we get to that point, I have 3 witnesses. I have Tom Graham, who is an engineer. I have Mr. Fox, Ken Fox, who is an architect. And I have Paul Anderson, who is a planner. And he would testify as to the use variance and any other variance issues that we needed to discuss. I would like to try to, do the abridged version of this application and try and get, since really all the variances that are part of this application are already pretty much in existence, except for the use variance. So I'd like to get the site plan application through. And at the end of that, we can make a decision whether the board whether we decide to bifurcate the application as you have done in this past one for the use variance later, and come back at another time for the use variance, or whether we can, go forward. Like I said, 5 out of 5. As I told my planner, I once bet on a horse named Tripod, but I'm not sure that my clients.
Right. Yeah. I'll just to point out to the public, it takes 5 positive votes to pass a D variance, and there are only 5 voting members currently.
So go ahead.
You want to have the your 3 witnesses sworn in first?
That's probably a good idea. Save some time.
Okay, Bill, you want to take care of that?
Witnesses, please raise your right hands. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you identify yourselves in some fashion?
Okay, first, Mr. Fox, please.
Kenneth Fox, Fox Architectural Design, architect for the applicant, Roxbury, New Jersey. I have testified before this board and other boards that are in the area.
Okay, Mr. Graham.
Thomas Graham, professional engineer, Dykstra Walker Design Group. I'm a licensed professional engineer, and I testified in front of this board and on the prior application for this property.
Okay, and Mr. Anderson.
Paul Anderson, Anderson Consulting Service, licensed professional planner. Testified in front of numerous boards throughout the state and accepted as a professional planner.
Okay, any objection by the board to accept these 3 gentlemen as expert witnesses?
No objection.
Okay, seeing no objection, Mr. Caputo, it's up to you.
Thank you. Mr. Graham, I would ask you to tell the board about this application, what we're here for, and describe what our requests are, and then in the end, go through Mr. Rushke's report and address those issues as expeditiously as you can.
Sure. We're here tonight regarding property identified as block 4001, lots 8.01 and 8.04. At the prior application, there was a application to construct a 7,200 square foot footprint building. We're here tonight because we're modifying the location of that building a little bit, about 10 feet from the property line. And the reason that we're doing that the property was owned by another entity. They had begun some of the site work and had gotten most of it done with respect to removing the rock between the proposed building and Sparta Stanhope Road. The current owner wishes to construct a slightly modified building, not do any more removal of the rock or disturbance of the associated steep slopes, and to put the proposed building, same size, same footprint, same architectural look in an area that's already been prepped and cleared as part of the work that was being done for the original location of the building. As part of the application, we do have 3 variances. One is for the number of parking spaces required versus what's proposed. One is for the impervious coverage versus what is allowed versus what is proposed. And the last is for overall disturbance of steep and critical slopes. This application, we are, because we're going to not move the building any further into the slopes, we have less impervious coverage because we're not creating as much pavement in the front of the building. So the ordinance allows 40%, 48.2% is what is proposed now, whereas 49.6% was the original approval. With respect to the number of parking spaces, because of the minor change in use where we're proposing a residential structure in the one building, there's a change in the number of parking spaces that is required. Currently, we calculate 169 required, and we are proposing 58. The prior application, 179 spaces were required, and 57 were proposed. And then lastly, with respect to steep and critical slope disturbance, in the prior application, 8,168 square feet was proposed, where 2,500 square feet is what's allowed. We have reported the same area of steep slopes disturbance. We don't anticipate any more steep slopes disturbance, but we may have to do a little work to stabilize the rock face, and there's a construction of a retaining wall that may require some additional disturbance, but certainly we're not going to disturb as much as what was previously approved. So we have just left that same number as the anticipated steep slopes disturbance, but we're not going to be that high.
So in essence, all the variances that we're requesting, except for the use variance, are the same or are equal to or lesser than what's already been granted. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you think you need to put up a plan so they can see where you're moving the building to?
I can do that. I will share my screen. Can you see that?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Here we go.
There we go. Okay.
You're sharing your screen. Now, there we are.
Okay. And so this is the plans that were submitted to the board for an amended preliminary final site plan last dated 1/14/16 and then last revised 3/5/21. And okay, so this is the site plan. These are the two lots. This first rectangular lot over here is lot 8.01. The longer trapezoidal shaped lot immediately adjacent is lot 8.04. The property is accessed via a driveway off of Sparta Stanhope Road, which enters in through lot 8.01, then reverses across. This rectangular box in the southerly portion of the property is the building that we're talking about. In the prior application, it was set back about 6 feet further, and there was going to be a 10-foot wide area around the perimeter of the building. The new plan is to set the building right up against the base of the exposed rock, and the architecture was modified so that that wall can accommodate that kind of a design. The building, for all intents and purposes, is about where it was. It's just a small modification in the distance from the property line, and it's up against the resulting rock face from the removal of the rock in this general area.
Does it do anything in terms of access to it or the other buildings?
No, sir. Access is still through lot 8.01, through the paved and then gravel parking.
Well, I mean access in that immediate area where you have the bays.
No, the bays are on the same face of the building. There's no real change to the building other than the back wall is modified so that it can be accommodated with the rock face construction.
Okay, John Rushke, do you have any problem with ingress or egress to those buildings?
No, there's adequate turn distances.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know. How about the technical review? There are 14 items on it. Do you want to go through them?
I can go through them one by one if you want, but in general, we take no exception to Mr. Rush's comments. Number one, I believe we did supply the Highlands exemption number 4 that we had received for the project.
I think so.
There is no new signage proposed. If it is required that we, I'm going to talk about the residential component, even though it might be eliminated later during the discussion. So the proposed building proposed residential unit would be located here on the second floor of the existing building. Access is from the parking area to the north, and then there's a paved walker. The door entry is right here. If maybe we can regulate these two parking spaces for that unit, and if required, the appropriate signage, reserved for unit 102 or whatever the designation would be, we can provide that. Water and sewer utility information, the project is supplied with water via well. It's on a septic system. The residential component would be tied in through internal plumbing in the building, and the existing system, the existing lateral exits in the westerly section of the building to this manhole then is directed to the septic field in the back. We will identify the location of the doors a little better than we have shown on this plan with respect to item number 4. And we'll also identify the commercial entry point. We'll make that clearer on the plans. With respect to lighting for the residential unit, would be a small light fixture above the door, very similar to most residential houses. And then there's a light pole here that illuminates the parking lot. So I think between the light over the door and the existing parking lot light, this area is adequately lit. We anticipate no additional tree removal with the project going forward, because we are looking to not remove any more of the steep slopes or disturb any more of that area. And the building will be in an area that has already been leveled and graded out. No new signage is proposed as part of this plan. There is one sign over by the entry for the existing tenants, but at this point, no new signage is proposed. With regard to how the steep slopes and the wall will be stabilized, we believe that the rock face is competent rock, and that the area behind it, vegetation has taken over again, and we believe this area is currently stabilized. We are proposing a retaining wall to bridge the gap between the existing retaining wall and the new building. Due to its height prior to construction, stability calculations prepared by a professional engineer will be provided for the board engineers review. We will reach out to the fire marshal to talk about any of his concerns and if he is going to require a cistern or not for the project. We will report back to Mr. Rushke about those reviews and comments from the fire marshal. Regarding a sprinkler system proposed, I am not the architect, but I can tell you that the bill will comply with all applicable building codes. That is absolutely the intent of the applicant. We had received approval for the expansion of the septic system as part of the prior application. This conversion of some of the industrial space to the residential component, we are able to fit these parts into the existing septic system, and we will make application for that minor modification and provide that to Mr. Rushke and the board secretary once we receive the approval. We have made application to the county planning board, and that application process is ongoing.
Okay, Mr. Rushke, do you have any comments, questions about that?
No, no further comments at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Caputo, back to you.
No, why don't you ask the board if you have any more? I was going to change the subject, so why don't we get done?
Okay. Does anybody from the board have questions or comments about the report we just received from Mr. Graham?
No.
Okay. I have a question, Mr. Graham. When I went over to the property, I noticed that there's a large portion which is still undeveloped. And there's a sign there, no entry unless you're on business. Nothing is going back there at the moment, correct?
Nothing that I am aware of, no, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Is that it for questions at this point?
I think so, Mr. Caputo.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Graham, could you address the issue of the used car dealership resolution 803 as opposed to 804
Yeah,
and explain why that's a mistake?
Yeah, I'm gonna change, yeah. Can the board see that, my letter of March 17th?
Right.
Okay, so there was a resolution dated December 7th, which referenced block 4001, lot 8.03, and that talked about a prior application where a building was proposed and the property was going to be utilized for or allowed for a car dealership or for the selling of vehicles, provided that the operator obtained the correct license to do so. So it mentioned specifically block 4001, lot 8.03. In our research, I believe that it was supposed to be lot 8.04. I did visit the town hall, and Danielle was very helpful in helping me pull records for all of the lots, 8.02, 8.03, 8.04, and 8.01. And there was a lot of overlap between lot 803 and lot 804. I did some further research and found in the tax officials' tax office, there was a document, and this is a resolution where lot 8.03, which was a borough property, was put up for sale. And it was offered initially to the 3 properties which abutted that property. This is Schedule A of that resolution. Lot 8.03, the property to be sold. And at that, the adjacent properties were block 4001, lot 5, lot 6, and lot 8.02, not lot 8.04. And then there was this additional document which showed the property that was for sale, lot 8.03, which is adjacent to lot 8.02. On the other side of lot 8.01, the lot 8.04 is to the south of 8.01. That is the lot that was part of the application that was approved for the use of the car dealership, not lot 8.03, which is only 0.3 acres in size. And they talked about the number of vehicles that might be stored on the property as part of that operation. And I'm going to change descriptions again. This is the resolution that we're talking about, approved December 7th, last memorialized on the 8th for block 401, lot 8.03. And it talks about the buildings that were previously approved for the prior owner of the property, Mr. Sniffen. And it talks about the number 20 vehicles. 20 vehicles will not fit on 0.3 acres. I'm very confident that they meant lot 8.04. And Mr. Caputo's wish is to have this resolution amended to reflect lot 8.04, not lot 8.03, which has subsequently been merged into lot 8.02. And lot 8.03 no longer exists.
All right. Are there any questions about that from the board or any comments? Bill Haggerty.
Yeah, it appears that that's a clerical mistake. I had some conversation with Mr. Caputo about this a couple of times, and I think we can correct that. It was noticed as an issue to be dealt with by the board this thing, so it would take a vote of this board to correct the December 4, 2007 resolution to change the reference from lot 8.03 to lot 8.04.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments about that? Okay, Mr. Caputo, back to you.
Can we have, I don't think we have any more questions at this point, Mr. Graham. I would just ask the architect, Mr. Ken Fox, to put up a copy of a set of plans and testify with regard to them, so satisfy the board as to the building being pretty much the same as it was before with minor changes.
Yes,
Mr. Fox, are you there?
Yes, I am. And Danielle, if I can get, or Tom has to get off.
Yeah, Tom has to get off. He He has to stop sharing his screen. There we go.
That's better. Were we successful?
Yes, we are.
I can go very quickly. I'll tell you the changes to the plan. As you can see on the submitted plan A1, the building is not changed in its configuration, 120 feet by 60 feet, same configuration. The major, it's my change, was in the back left corner. We had a second floor or a mezzanine on the previous approval. That has been removed. The spacing of the bays has changed a little bit. So instead of 5 overhead doors, there's 4 overhead doors. On the original application, on the right-hand side, there were two overhead doors. We've actually framed for 2 to be there in the future. We're not going to build them now, but they were on the approval and they do fit on the site. According to as per Mr. Graham, the change to the building was that a retaining wall was built as part of the building, so that in the first floor it's a certain height, and then you can see in the rear as it gets filled up to that retaining wall, it's a different height because of the change in the grades as he testified. That's the extent of the changes to that building. Again, essentially the same building. Mr. Graham testifies to the location of the proposed, I'll call it caretaker's apartment. This is for security and maintenance supervisor to provide this in the other building. He testified to the location on Mr. Anderson's sheet SP2, which was submitted. The interior layout is generally shown on the schematic. The location of the entry doors, I believe where an entry door presently is to this upper level, and then there will be a living room, kitchen, bathroom proposed, and 2 bedrooms. There will be some windows, a couple changes in windows possibly. That would really be the only exterior change that one could see, and we'd be building this to code with whatever is required regarding fire suppression, fire alarm, egress windows. This will be built and submitted to the construction code official to code. Thank you.
And use will be restricted to an employee of the,
The purpose that we're having now is to have an employee who is going to be doing security and possibly maintenance.
Well, we have to put that in the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the proposal.
Are there going to be any handicap parking spots?
I believe that Tom Graham would be better at answering that. But there are, I can tell you at the upper location, as per his plan, you can see that there are handicap spaces on the upper area. And I think his previous testimony did specify where the handicap parking spaces were for any other position, but they are available. They are available here at the residence.
And we will demonstrate on the plan, the revised plan, we're going to have to give Mr. Rushke that would comply with the ADA requirements for the location of parking spaces.
All right. Any questions, comments from the board?
Did you make any plans? Did you do a plan of the residence?
On the sheet submitted by Mr. Anderson, this is a schematic plan of what the residence is to be. It'll be generally configured like this. We have to actually show the details, but it does show a kitchen, eating area, bathroom, living room, and 2 bedrooms. And this is all within the existing building. No exterior changes other than possibly some windows.
There's no intention to ever rent this space out to anybody else other than an employee.
Not as far as I know.
That would be part of the resolution, that it must be to an employee only.
Right.
How is it heated?
This would be provided with a separate HVAC system from the remaining part of the building. Presently, the garage portions of the building, I believe, have the gas blowers, if I recall. It's been a long time since I've been in there. But this would have its own HVAC unit.
Cars, what's inside the building?
It's that's a location of office space presently, and I think I think the existing kitchenette is there, so there's already water there. So it's not an industrial part of the building. It's the office part of the building.
Okay. So there's no cars running in the building that you have to worry about.
No,
Cross.
no, but we again, this, anytime you have, would have a mixed use, there are absolute requirements for separation of gases, heat, as well as light. I mean, it's all the elements are have to be separated.
Just making sure.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, Mr. Caputo.
If you could just hang on 1 second, please. I apologize. Well, okay. So at this point, just if I would ask Mr. Fox, I just want to be clear. This building where the apartment's going to go, there are no motor vehicles in the vehicle downstairs.
Well, I haven't been downstairs in many years. I designed this building many years ago, and I personally have not been there. I can't say.
All right. Well, I may turn that question over then maybe to Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Paul, do you know what's inside the building on the ground?
On the ground floor, there is storage of automobiles.
It's just storage.
Yes.
Okay.
No vehicles?
Sorry?
No vehicles?
No, there are vehicles. There are storage of vehicles.
There are cars stored, race cars stored in that lower space.
Yeah, can I correct that, Rayron?
Sure.
Or Mr. Chairman? Do I need to be sworn in?
Yes, you would. Mr. Haggerty, could you swear in Mr. Bongiovanni?
Yes, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I just want to clarify this. I don't want there to be any misconceptions. On the ground floor, if you will, of that same building, that is where my race shop is. So my race cars are in there. We do work on those race cars. And we store them in that area as well. As well, the living area that we're talking about upstairs actually is a kitchenette. There's a bathroom, and there are 3 rooms, which Mr. Sniffen was using as office and storage rooms, if you will. So actually, there'll be very little interior modifications, in that area, except as needed to meet code. And there shouldn't be any exterior changes either, because there are windows in each of those rooms. But I did want to clarify that so you completely understand the use of that building. That is for someone, one of my employees to be there. The equipment that we keep is rather expensive. You have to load and unload at night in order to keep the race cars inside. And I'll let Mr. Anderson speak to that, but I did want to clarify the use of the building itself.
Thank you.
Are you a tenant? What's your relationship to the building, Mr. Bongiovanni?
I own the company that owns the building.
Okay.
I would ask Mr. Fox if there are any ventilation issues that would arise.
Only that we would meet code and whatever is required. And then there's always carbon monoxide detectors as well. But we have to just check just like we're doing for heat or insulation, there's residential requirements, and the same thing for any airflow. So we might have to do some caulking or separation of airflow, but it's nothing that wouldn't put on our building permit drawings.
There was a question regarding the heat. There is a separate heating unit in that area as well, heated by propane.
All right, so any other questions to the board?
No, go ahead, Mr. Caputo.
Does Mr. Rushke have any issues do you want to talk to the architect about?
No questions or issues.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I would, okay, at this point, I need to get some input from the board. We only have 5 members. I would like, I can have Mr. Anderson testify more as to the use variance and justifications for it. Or we could wait, carry till next time when we have members. But I was thinking that perhaps we could have the testimony in, and then get a straw poll like in the last one to see whether or not we want to go with 5 members. Like I said, that's a quite a 5 out of 5.
Well,
But
go
we
ahead.
could make that.
Have Mr. Anderson testify.
Okay, Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
If you would testify with regard to the use of the, well, testify regarding all the variances and, you know, justification for them, including the use variance and the apartment.
Okay. So the apartment is to be used by a caretaker. It's not a standard residential use that you would anticipate in your zone. We are in the M1 zone, the light manufacturing zone, and all the uses there for the building are permitted, except for this residential use, which is specifically prohibited. So we have a D1 variance. You heard testimony from the engineer and the architect about moving the other, moving the new building that contains some C variances associated with it. But they're the same C variances that were previously granted. And from the testimony provided, the intensity of those variances are either the same or reduced from previously granted. So in that particular case, my opinion is that moving the building 10 feet doesn't create any additional detriment associated with the C variances. With regard to the D variance, this being a unique residential application here, it's intended to provide a physical presence on site. Now, if I can share my screen, if that's possible, let's see. Here, let's see. This is a photograph that I took the other day of the back of the building. This is the area where the race cars would be dropped off in the evening, sometimes very late in the evening, and they're in a truck. However, their value is high, and the preference would be to lock them away in the garage, in storage, like they would at the end of as soon as they're returned, to prevent any kind of potential for theft or vandalism by leaving it on the truck. So you can see this area here has virtually no visibility from the public road, from Stanhope Sparta Road. It's an ideal location for, for theft and vandalism unless there's somebody back there. We can't rely on the police be parked in the backyard. So as an alternate, having someone that actually lives on site and would be there as a presence would provide a deterrent to that potential. So if you look at this from a purposes of zoning perspective, providing a safer site which reduce crime or potential for crime in the area goes to meeting purpose of zoning, which is to the general welfare of the community. I think it very strongly promotes that purpose. Additionally, I see very little negative impact from the single unit residence. It's just a person who is an employee. It's not a family with kids running around the neighborhood. There is no neighborhood. And I think that it's a unique residential element that can be justified. If you look at the Hopatcong master plan, it does encourage mixed use development in commercial zones with residential applications above. I believe that's intended for more the retail districts, but in that intensity in the retail district is not what we're proposing here. We're proposing a single residence just for that presence, and it actually goes to adding the purpose that was intended for the rest of the town is a substantial detriment, which is a, where did it go? It's a more sustainable development, basically. So it's sustainable if people are using it multiple times and there's always someone there. So I think
Mr. Anderson, I'm sorry, I interrupted. I just want to, because you were talking about the trucks. Unloading these trucks, if there's no one there, they have to unload the trucks at night rather into the building at night, rather than being able to leave the vehicles on the trucks overnight if there was somebody there. Is that correct?
that is precisely correct, yes.
All right, and it is very noisy when you take these cars
They are
off
loud vehicles.
at 2 or 3 in the morning. Could disturb neighbors.
They are loud vehicles, right, and they potentially could if you just start them to bring them into the building.
Would there be sufficient lighting there to see what you're doing?
Yes, there is.
So basically, by having someone there, you would be able to leave the vehicles on the trucks and not have to start them up and put them into the building at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, you could do it at a more reasonable hour of the day when that sound wouldn't disturb anyone.
Okay.
Would that person necessarily be armed?
No.
No. It's just, how you have, if there's lights on and they know someone's there, they're less likely to get into mischief. They're less likely to try. That's the deterrent we're trying to provide with the single residential development. Single unit.
It's really a caretaker, and that's not really, it's kind of like between residents, what is a known residence and what is just a caretaker's full-time living quarters. I mean, it's not.
That's correct. That's correct. It's not, it is a residence, but it's not a residence that's really defined in your ordinance. It's somewhat of a hybrid. It's a different type of residence.
Yeah, it's a hybrid office. It's a hybrid caretaker's office.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. I mean, that's basically, the variances associated with this application, I think they can be granted without substantial detriment to the zone plan or the ordinance. The D variance, I think the special reasons are basically that this type of residence does not meet the definition of what is specifically prohibited. And also with this unique topography of the land here and the way this lot has been developed, you have the potential for mischief and vandalism and theft if you don't have some kind of additional presence on site.
If I could just add to that, Mr. Anderson, that the cars, I can't leave them in the trailer overnight being unattended because they are fairly expensive, and I think it would be quite a draw for someone to go steal the whole truck and trailer and the cars associated with that. So that's the reason to have to unload them. Right now, my insurance company doesn't preclude me from leaving the cars in the trailer, but I expect that actually is going to happen at some point because theft with race cars in them is becoming more and more prevalent. So that's the intent. The other thing is the individual that would live in that apartment more likely the caretaker for the entire property, especially now that we're adding that other building. I do have an intention to purchase the remaining property from the estate of Mr. Smith, and it's really going to need some full-time care in terms of managing the whole environment, and I think it just will go much better, with somebody there dedicated to taking care of that. So it's kind of a double duty, but I think it helps many things all the way around.
Okay, Mr. Caputo.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is where I come to. Here is my. I think what I would ask the board. I would ask the board to, if they would be able to pass a resolution first approving the site plan, and the resolution modification of the 803 to 804. And then and possibly get then a straw vote on the board as to the use variance, and take a second vote on that if either tonight or at the next meeting when we would have more than 5 members, depending on how the straw vote goes and how, you know, we feel would be the best way to proceed on that issue.
Okay,
Is
Bill,
that pop-
can we split it to possibly 2 or 3 votes?
Why don't you split it to 2 votes? I don't think there should be any issue on modifying the resolution of the site plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that, yes.
Okay, let's open it to the public first. Would anybody from the public like to comment or question anything at all about this application, all 3 parts? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen and on reactions, raise your hand.
Mr. Anderson, could you stop sharing your screen?
That's what I was going to say next.
you.
There we go. Okay. So I'm down to 1 screen now. I see no hands raised. So I will bring it back to the board. Would somebody like to make a motion just on the first 2 parts, just on modifying the 8.03 to 8.04 and the moving of the building?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got it.
Mr.
Danielle?
Duncan?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Bob, you're muted. Just use your finger, up or down.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Riley?
Yes.
And Mr. Gilbert?
Yes. Okay, so that's taken care of. Now, Danielle, how about a straw vote? Call the people one at a time, just see how they feel about the D variance.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes, as long as we put in the resolution that the person is not to be armed. Mr. Caputo. Or Mr.
I would think, I have to ask Mr. Bongiovanni, but I think that is probably a reasonable
Fine with
request.
that. I'm good with that.
Yeah. So
What we're looking for is motion then to approve, because that was a straw poll, a motion to approve the use variance to allow a care apartment employee not armed. And also, of course, this confirms the site plan with the variances associated with that site plan approval.
In conjunction with all requirements for independent systems in the residential area versus the.
All code.
Okay, somebody want to make that motion? Bob? Okay, second?
Second.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Thank you
everybody.
for your consideration and for your time that you put in. And maybe I will go bet on that horse named Tripod.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, zoning officer report. Bill, do you have anything for us?
Good night, everyone.
Okay.
Good night.
Are there any items for discussion? We better not. Resolution.
I gotta go.
Capo, hearing date April 6, 2021. Motion is in order to approve the Capo resolution.
Make a
Do we
motion.
have a motion?
I'll
Do
make
we
a
have
motion.
Second? Okay. Danielle?
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Abstain.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Same.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Councilman Schindler?
Yeah, Schindler and Mayor Francis are back in, hopefully. I don't see Mr. Schindler.
Mayor Francis?
Yeah.
And Mr. Gilbert?
No, I voted no on the in the first one. And second, Matt Ruskowitz, April 6, 2021. Motion is in order to approve the Reskowitz resolution. We have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second? I will second it.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Abstain.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray, Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay. Correspondence. We had the one piece of correspondence from the Lake Hopatcong Commission. And we put that out to the person who was affected. No escrow refunds. Did we pay the bills?
Pay the bill.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yeah.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. I will now open the meeting to the public. Would anybody from the public like to address the board on any issue at all? If so, please go to the screen and in reactions, raise your hand.
Mr. Addis.
Go right ahead, Mr. Addis. I don't hear you, sir.
Sorry, we good now?
There we go.
All right, I realize it's late and I don't envy the job that you all have to do on a, probably on a daily basis. So regarding the Bella Rosa.
No, we shouldn't talk about that anymore.
No, we can't. We can't.
Talk about it. No.
Not till it comes up again. June 1st.
Phil explained that because the board made a decision and voted on the issue. So, Haggerty, could you explain that?
My comment is really, the board didn't really make a decision.
Yep.
The board voted.
We have to be very careful once the
We
hearing.
carried this forward to June 1st.
Did the board not vote?
No. We carried it forward to June 1st. That's all we did.
Right.
No,
We
you
vote-
retained
The
your
only thing we
objection.
voted on
You
was the awning on the
Beauty
No,
shop.
one building.
Alan, there was a vote. It didn't pass. They retained jurisdiction and asked to come on June 1st.
Oh, okay, that's correct. I'm sorry.
Let me just make a comment here. all right?
Bill, explain that, please, because that's
Yes.
shaky.
Yes. What had happened, the application as presented was voted on. 5 yes votes are required for approval. The applicant did not receive 5 yes votes. There was an expression that certain things were viewed negatively by the board members, especially architectural concerns. The applicant's attorney asked if we could retain jurisdiction to allow modifications potentially to the architectural plans, especially re-presented to the board members for review. This extension would be without further notice, so it is our next meeting in June. But we can't talk about the merits of the app. We're done talking about the application tonight. We shouldn't really get back into it. We could prejudice the applicant. It's just not fair to do that.
Well, let me just say then, I thank the board for, what you're doing here. I appreciate everything that, everybody, the views from various different angles on this. It feels like we are going to push water aside.
No.
Okay.
Can't go there.
Okay, I won't go there. I'll just be quiet because I don't understand, the process here. I will just let you know that I'm not completely happy with some members of this board and the way they present the aesthetics and the design. And everything
Danielle,
else.
would you please mute Mr. Addis?
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Modes, you have your hand up. Ms. Mode?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go
Okay.
ahead.
To the best of my knowledge and recollection, I've seen the residents and the fire department use the property located at 468 River Styx Road by the bridge for years before the current owner took possession. It was mentioned in the last zoning officer's report at the land use board meeting that the residents are apparently still using the property. So my question is to Mr. Haggerty, and I'd like to know at what point did or does the public gain rights to use that property legally?
And I'd like to mention something to you, ma'am. It was
Yes.
pointed out at that meeting that there is no fire lane there. And you went online a day after we had our meeting. You said there was fire lane, and I'm quite upset.
I don't
about
believe that was me.
Well, it was under your name. Bill, it's up to you.
Okay. There can be, you can acquire quote unquote title by adverse possession. A deed doesn't fall out of the sky. It requires a judicial determination that there's been 30 years continuous adverse use of a property to establish that. But again, deed doesn't fall out of the sky. It only comes to fruition if there's a judicial decision, and not as easy as people think.
Okay.
Asking because my mother went to buy property one time and there was a path between the two. Asked if she could put up a fence and she was told no unless she put a gate on either side because the students used it to get from one side of the street to the other. That was the basis of my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else, anything else? Anybody else want to address the board on any issue at all? If so, please, in reactions, raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Old business? New
ID card.
business?
ID
Pardon?
card. ID card.
Ron's not here tonight. He said at the last meeting he was working on it.
Okay.
New business? Judy? You're on.
Motion to adjourn, please.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.